The military tensions in East Asia have reached a fever pitch, with struggles over land and economic solutions causing a breach in diplomatic ties. Over the years, Japan, North Korea, China, the Kremlin, and the United States have been deadlocked in an arms race, with each country planning the development of missiles that travel at hypersonic speed. Recently, China has reportedly made a breakthrough on their end. How does that affect the dynamics of the power play in East Asia? Will their attempt at diplomacy survive these hypersonic missiles? Join us as we discuss the global impact of China's billion-dollar hypersonic missile breakthrough. Since time immemorial, warfare has attained different levels of evolution, from the Neanderthals discovering fire to the Homo sapiens making spears, all with the same goal in mind: survival. However, the times have changed, hence sticks, stones, and spears just don't do it anymore. Speed seems to be the new face of warfare, and top countries in East Asia, North America, and Europe have been locked in an arms race, with the concerned nations hoping to beat each other to the punch. While there are speculations of a breakthrough in hypersonic missile weapons from the West and the Kremlin, East Asia's greatest outlier, China, has come knocking with a breakthrough that punches right through the global arms hemisphere, and it is massive. At first, there were unconfirmed reports and basic speculations, making the rounds in the media of China's hypersonic missile traveling through space and seeming almost undetectable on radar, which was touted to be a huge concern for countries with whom they remain locked in a competition. However, in 2021, a reliable news outlet, the Financial Times, finally confirmed the reports of China's sudden breakthrough in their development of hypersonic missiles. While a missile isn't some new concept, especially to warfare specialists like the United States, Russia, and some of the Indo-Pacific regions, a missile traveling faster than the speed of sound was definitely a disturbing development. But how did it all begin? Every top military country has, in one way or another, gained access to missile technology. However, two countries seem to be on top of that list, boasting the most fatal types of missiles: the United States and Russia. Before China's sudden attempt at dominating the missile space, making every other nation quake in their boots, the United States had been pushing through the release of the AGM-183ARW, or Air-Launched Rapid Response Weapon, sometimes referred to as the Arrow. The AGM-183ARW is the brainchild of one of America's greatest weapon-building companies, Lockheed Martin. Although they did the construction, the idea did not come out of a vacuum. In 2018, the United States Air Force pursued the idea of having a missile that was capable of stealth and strategic bombing while carrying a nuclear warhead. However, the evolution of warfare over time has made it nigh impossible to simply invade the airspaces of military-oriented countries like Japan, Australia, and the East Asian countries without possible detection. Ergo, the need for something different. Something fast enough to travel through airspaces without detection and can hit its target before it is even detected. The AGM-183ARW was developed as a ballistic missile capable of traveling at hypersonic speed, meaning that it travels at 5 times the speed of sound, ergo, nigh unstoppable. In the arms world, news of a missile like that definitely travels faster than Mach 5 speed. In 2019, the missile went through its first captive carry test, meaning that it was fitted as a payload on a bomber to see if it was possible to be carried in the wings of a bomber without problems. Although the United States under the first Trump administration had allocated a whopping sum of $480 million to Lockheed Martin for the creation of the AGM-183ARW in 2018, the success of the captive carry test prompted the president to pay a bit more attention to the hypersonic missile project. The president's reason was rather simple. He wanted to make America great again, which was a big part of his MAGA campaign. He wanted to leave a mark on his country, making sure they could defend themselves if the time ever came. Hence, he proposed the addition of a 23% increase in funding to be pumped into the construction of the AGM-183ARW in 2020. However, in an unexpected turn of events, the cost of the missile, although paid with taxpayers' money, was starting to rouse up a storm in Congress, especially after the Trump administration came to an end and the Biden-Harris administration replaced the old Republican team. In 2023, the Congressional Budget Office popularly called the CBO, estimated that a production run of 300 AGM-183AR RWs would have a unit cost of $14.9 million per missile and a program cost of $5.3 billion, including platform integration and 20 years of sustainment. However, by March 2023, Lockheed Martin had experienced a barrage of problems while testing the AGM-183ARW. While these failures were expected before the desired result, they also came at a very serious cost, which was over $14 million for every failure. The program was canceled in the same month, 2023. But before its cancellation, there was some real potential allotted to this missile. For some context, the AGM-183ARW wasn't just the regular hypersonic weapon. It was way more than that. It was capable of a maximum speed of 15,000 miles per hour, which was around Mach 20. It was almost assured that there wasn't one aerial defense in the world capable of detecting a missile traveling at 20 times the speed of sound. The art behind the science of the delivery has often been deemed world-class, as it seemed nigh impossible to stop. The delivery system was somewhere between a boost and a glide delivery, with both concepts occurring one after the other. First, the bomber, specifically the B-52 Fortress, launches the missile, powered by a supercharged engine capable of reaching hypersonic speed. After a while, the hypersonic glide vehicle, which is the maneuverable part of the rocket, detaches from the rocket, armed with a warhead that travels at hypersonic speed, reaching Mach 20, zigzagging to avoid aerial defense, leaving it too late before the targeted nation could defend itself. Although the United States has announced that there will be no funding for the AGM-183ARRW in the 2025 fiscal year budget, there are speculations that the emergence of China's DF-ZF missile could force the United States into a rethink on how seriously they are taking the threats of lagging behind China on the hypersonic missile front. China has always been one of the leading weapons and arms connoisseurs in the world. However, countries like the United States and Russia have been at the forefront forever, leading the arms race elegantly, well, until they didn't. The emergence of the DF-17 and DF-ZF has put the world on high alert, with every top country scrambling to claw their way into the hypersonic missile conversation. Imagine fighting a nation capable of shooting an undetectable missile at you. It is game over, and the war already ended before it even started. But why is the DF-17 and DF-ZF combination so feared? The DF-17, just like the AGM-183ARW, has a booster glider deployment mode. However, they differ in how they are mobilized. While the latter is retrofitted into the wing of a bomber, the DF-17 is mobilized using a big military truck called the Transporter Erector Launcher, or TEL, as popularly regarded in the military space. These trucks are deemed important for a shoot-and-scoot mission, meaning that they are capable of shooting missiles and getting out of the area before they are even targeted by the opposition. But just how do the DF-17 and the DF-ZF work in tandem to deal some serious damage to the opposition? The DF-17 is fitted into the Transporter Erector Launcher, which drives to a secure location to aim the solid-fueled, road-mobile medium-range ballistic missile at its target. Upon launch into the atmosphere, it travels at hypersonic speed, within the ranges of Mach 5 and Mach 10. Once it hits a certain altitude, the DF-ZF, which is the hypersonic glider, takes on the rest of the territory to hit the target while carrying a warhead, which could be a conventional high-explosive warhead or a nuclear warhead. Their sudden success with their hypersonic weapon system not only put them on the map, but also made them a threat to the giants of the West, and especially the United States. For some context, on October 19, 2021, CNN journalist Brian Todd reported the sudden emergence of China's hypersonic missile, especially after speculations that the AGM-183ARRW was going to be halted. Many couldn't live with the fact that the United States intelligence, which has been at the top of the pile since time immemorial, was about to be upended in the air by China. But what made China's missile test so threatening that it got the United States top defense officials releasing statements? According to the Financial Times news outlet, China tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile in August 2021 that circled the globe before speeding toward its target, demonstrating an advanced space capability that caught United States intelligence by surprise. The Financial Times claimed that the missile missed its target by about 24 miles, according to 3 people briefed on the intelligence. But 2 said the test showed that China had made astounding progress on hypersonic weapons and was far more advanced than the United States realized. More importantly, the new test caught the United States by surprise, reflecting an impression that they had always underestimated the capabilities of the Chinese military, with comments coming from an unnamed representative of the United States saying, "We have no idea how they did this." However, the reason for the United States' fear was finally revealed when popular Chinese weapon expert Taylor Fravel, who was unaware of the test, revealed that a hypersonic glide vehicle armed with a nuclear warhead could help China bypass or completely negate the United States' missile defense systems, which are designed to destroy incoming ballistic missiles. Over the years, the United States, which has championed ballistic missiles, has not only been developing ballistic missiles to hurt an opposing country or defend itself, but also developed an anti-missile defense system. While it has been proven over the years that the anti-missiles are superbly effective at detecting and destroying missiles, there remains a bit of a doubt about what they are really capable of when faced with a hypersonic missile, especially when attached to a nuclear warhead. But what makes the ballistic missiles so different from the hypersonic missiles? Ballistic missiles travel in a parabola using projectile motion at mostly hypersonic speed, punching directly through the atmosphere and getting into space before they finally come back down at a speed exceeding Mach 5 and going up to Mach 20 with the support of gravitational pull force, pulling it towards the target. In contrast, the hypersonic missile is much different because it operates at a completely different speed and has a glider vehicle that helps it propel the warhead towards the point of impact using zigzag movements and serious maneuverability to avoid aerial defenses, including the A-280 defense systems and, more importantly, America's Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, otherwise called the THAAD, which has often been billed as the United States' strongest anti-ballistic missile. Although other East Asian countries that share a geopolitical border with China have tried to resist the impact of their hypersonic missiles by trying to produce one of their own, America believes that China's development poses a bigger threat to them. Michael Gallagher, a Republican member of the House Armed Services Committee, said the test should serve as a call to action to the United States. The People's Liberation Army now has an increasingly credible capability to undermine our missile defenses and threaten the American homeland with both conventional and nuclear strikes, said Gallagher. However, he finds it even more disturbing that there is a strong possibility that American technology has contributed to the People's Liberation Army hypersonic missile program, while they ironically lag behind. Lloyd Austin, former United States Secretary of Defense between 2021 and 2025, went on a full-on rampage, condemning China's rampant testing of their hypersonic missile amidst their continuous campaign to forcefully dominate big parts of East Asia, especially Taiwan and South Korea. However, Lloyd Austin was reportedly critical of China's heavy pursuit of hypersonic weapons, increasing tensions in the region, promising that the United States would retain their interest in South Korea, protecting its interest in sovereignty. Austin made the remarks in Seoul following annual security talks with his South Korean counterpart that focused on challenges from China and North Korea and other issues facing the Allies. However, South Korea remained almost impregnable because of the United States' continuous interference. Although China has stayed silent, watching the cascading events that have unfolded since they tested their hypersonic missiles. However, the People's Republic finally released a statement telling the world that they had not been testing any form of hypersonic missile, but instead were performing a routine spacecraft experiment. However, American analysts and experts on missile and space technology have called their bluff and decided that they were not being completely honest about the presence of their space technology. Dean Cheng, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, has warned the United States government and other countries around the world about the imminence of China's hypersonic missile and how much it spells doom for the opposing countries, especially if they do not have the means to defend themselves or wreak just as much havoc on them. He also posits that China orbiting a missile that is armed with a warhead spells danger, as they could be hiding them amongst their satellites, fooling the world into thinking that it is all they are. Also, Daryl Kimball, the executive director of the Arms Control Association, declares China's potential hypersonic as a war on the world at large, as it gives no one any time to prepare in case of a war with them. However, questions remain in the air about America's decision to continually butt in on the problems between East Asian countries, especially the tensions between North Korea, South Korea, and the People's Republic of China. Taiwan, officially known as the Republic of China, or ROC, is an island separated from China by the Taiwan Strait. Mainland China, officially the People's Republic of China, or PRC in popular parlance, is under Chinese Communist Party, or CCP rule, and asserts that Taiwan is an integral part of its territory, though it has never governed the island. However, the People's Republic of China views the island as a renegade province and vows to eventually unify Taiwan with the mainland. While they would preferably want it by peaceful means, they will use force if necessary. In Taiwan, which has its own democratically elected government and is home to 23 million people, political leaders have differing views on the island's status and relations with the mainland. Hence, the gripe between the United States and China. Although the United States has consistently kept China at bay with their consistent support for Taiwan and South Korea, China's recent testing of their Boost Glide hypersonic missiles has created an internal fear. And now there are more questions than answers. Are the United States going to back off and back into their shells, or are they willing to proceed despite China's well-past message of strength? Following China's show of strength, the United States has retaliated, albeit with a new engine form that might help them claw their way back to the top. Later in the year 2022, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has reportedly quietly unveiled a new high-speed missile program called Gambit. The program is reportedly meant to use a new method of propulsion that could have some serious implications, and not just in terms of weapons development, but also for high-speed aircraft and even in how warships are powered for the United States Navy. This propulsion system, known as a rotating detonation engine, or RDE, has the potential to be even lighter than existing jet engines, while offering a significant boost in power output, range, and fuel efficiency. The rotation detonation engine, or RDE technology, is a much more complicated technological advancement than the traditional jet engines. For some context, the rotating detonation engine creates its explosion differently from the traditional engines. Instead of burning fuel on a regular basis, this detonation wave would travel around and around, constantly pushing out huge bursts of energy, reducing fuel consumption, and actually carrying the missile at hypersonic speed, almost reaching Mach 20. In aircraft applications like jet fighters, rotating detonation engines could offer similar benefits to missiles in terms of range and speed, while potentially reducing maintenance requirements. Fighter jets, for example, rely on afterburners, which effectively push fuel into the engine's exhaust stream for added thrust, which you can imagine rapidly depletes the fuel stores and reduces the fighter jet's range. However, there are reports and expert suggestions that it might reopen a new route for the United States into the hypersonic missile market, with advantages in Europe and the Pacific. For some context, the Kremlin has used the hypersonic Kinzhal air-launched ballistic missile in important missions, reaching Mach 10. More importantly, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA's, rotating detonation engine technology could give them an advantage over their Indo-Pacific opponent, specifically China. Although there are speculations of a possible retreat into an attempt at figuring out a way to make the Lockheed Martin's AGM-183 work, especially with Donald Trump back in power, using the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA's, rotating detonation engine technology is not completely ruled out of the equation. Whether the United States finds a breakthrough in integrating the rotating detonation technology into their hypersonic missiles and competes with China for a place back at the top of the pile remains to be seen. Tensions have continued to rise for a long time between the United States and Latin American cartels, who have made it their life mission to commercialize sections of the United States as a part of their opioid trade. While the United States has reportedly tried diplomacy, it hasn't worked so far. Ergo, a resort to violence seems to be on the cards, with the United States reportedly looking to flex its aerial superiority one more time. What implications will this have on the cartels? Is there a chance that the cartels surrender or retaliate? Join us as we discuss a potential fighter jet hit from the United States on Latin American cartels. Over the years, tensions between the United States and cartel-dominated sovereign states in Latin America, including Mexico and Venezuela, have continued to fester. While the affected countries have reportedly engaged in diplomatic discussions to turn the situation around, with the United States offering its massive military might to combat their problem, the affected Latin American countries have consistently refused. However, questions continue to linger behind the scenes. Why would they refuse help from one of the three most powerful nations in the world? Consistent speculations swirling around the geopolitical discourse have been absolutely stunning, with rumors of a possible joint operation between these transnational cartels, who have put the governments of their respective sovereign states in a limbo. Ergo, they are afraid of taking them on. While there is no real proof or evidence that backs up these speculations, they refuse to go away. However, one thing remains consistent. Latin America was the center of opioid trading, and the federal governments of the affected nations have refused help from the United States, whose teeth are set on edge, despite the Latin American countries being the ones who ate the sour grapes. For some context, the United States Drug Enforcement Agency, popularly called the DEA, has finally figured out that an influx of fentanyl opioids is taking over the American social space and taking the lives of many. It was a difficult find because the United States used to reliably prescribe it as a drug to its citizens, and it was available as a common over-the-counter prescription, at least until they found out that it was addictive. The Latin American cartels immediately jumped on the addictive feel of the pill and found ways to create and commercialize it. At first, the opioid was sold in large quantities in the Latin American countries, but the economic advantage was far less compared to what it could be in a country with a better gross domestic product, or GDP average, like the West, especially the United States. The financial and economic motivation was enough for the Latin American countries to devise plans for a fire sale of the opioid, which would be ferried through the United States-Mexico border. The cartels were extremely smart in building a demand and supply chain in the United States, inverting the forces perfectly. First, they supplied, creating awareness of a new pill in town, driving up the demand, ergo, driving up the price. One of the first opioid waves in the United States post-war was a perfectly planned distribution from the heroin retailer of the old Colombian transnational criminal organizations, TCOs, which was brought into the United States, resulting in increased heroin use and adverse consequences in the United States. Following the massive heroin consumption in the United States between the 80s and the 90s, courtesy of the Colombian transnational criminal organizations, the Mexican cartels soon took over the market in the early 2000s. First, they pressed illicit fentanyl into prescription pills, using them as counterfeits in over-the-counter prescriptions, slowly gaining serious ground over the Colombian heroin dominance. This mini-turf war over opioid dominance in the United States between the Colombian and Mexican cartels lasted a long time between the 2010. However, it was not long before the Mexican cartels, with the backing of Chinese gangs, perhaps the triads who reportedly helped them secure the chemical needed to produce this counterfeit fentanyl, took over the Colombian cartel-controlled areas in the United States, taking over a working operation that has successfully destabilized the mental and physical health of citizens and denizens of the United States. As the years rolled by, the United States caught a whiff of the situation, with the death toll getting increasingly difficult to ignore. According to statistics from between 2021 and 2022, over 100,000 people died in the United States as a result of fentanyl overdose. But what makes fentanyl so dangerous and different from other types of opioid addiction waves that the United States used to have? Fentanyl is one of a class of many drugs known as opioids, which are used for pain relief. They can also be addictive. The key way in which fentanyl differs from more familiar opioids like morphine, codeine, or even heroin is potency. Potency refers only to the amount of a substance needed to produce a certain effect. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. This means that if about 10 milligrams of morphine is needed to produce pain relief, only 1/10 of 1 milligram of fentanyl, which is about 0.1, is needed to produce the same effect. Few people have access to a scale sensitive enough to accurately measure amounts that small. Hence, there is a chance that little bits of miscalculations could be dangerous and almost fatal. Fentanyl was never some new drug, but the deliberate decision of the United States medical specialists to make it inaccessible to avoid addiction forced users to switch to heroin, which provides the same effect but is much cheaper. However, now the third wave is here, with fentanyl substituting for heroin and the Mexicans taking the market once again from the Colombian transnational criminal organizations. The reasons for this switch are not yet fully understood, but it is thought that in recent years, it has become much cheaper to produce illicit fentanyl rather than heroin for various reasons, especially since the Mexican cartels found support from across Latin American gangs and the Chinese. But how has the United States reacted to the sheer audacity of the Latin American cartels to continue their opioid trade within the shores of the United States? The military accomplishments of the United States have been a common staple in its description. While they have been known to keep the peace in countries, flexing their military might and butting in when necessary to stop wars at their base, even before they start. But despite the United States' ability to keep the peace in foreign countries and butt in between warring countries, with their superior military being their greatest fear factor, it is quite shocking that they are unable to completely solve their opioid problems, especially when they know exactly where they come from. Yet they seem incapacitated to do anything major about it. Why have they chosen to fight with one hand tied behind their backs? Under Article 2, Chapter 4 of the United Nations Charter, a sovereign state is not allowed the right to use or threaten to use force against another sovereign state, which by extension protects the sovereignty of states and keeps international relations as diplomatic as possible. While there have been cases where diplomacy fails and countries resort to war, the United Nations Charter and other laws applying to international relations and diplomacy demonize the concepts of asymmetrical warfare when certain conditions aren't met under international and humanitarian law. Asymmetrical warfare is an absolutely different beast, owing to its flexibility and contextual difference, which can tilt the right and wrong on different sides of the pendulum. For example, in a war between a nation-state and a non-state entity like a cartel, which is residing in a smaller sovereign state, that is in contrast with the military strength of a state the size of America. The stronger sovereign state in terms of military and technology is judged by the United Nations by the tools with which they used to fight the war, and if they got the permission of the smaller sovereign state before they brought their military, else it is an unlawful invasion. Ergo, this jurisdictional impasse creates a bit of difficulty for the United States to simply go into Latin American countries and stomp out their problems. Hence, they tried something different. This time, the United States government tried to reach out to its closest neighbor, from which a massive portion of the poisonous fentanyl gets into their state, Mexico, offering them a chance to have them share information about the whereabouts of some of the cartels, including the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel, information that the Mexican government has repeatedly said that they do not have. While many believe that the president of Mexico at the time, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, was going to jump at the chance to have the United States on board, he stuck with his hugs not bullets policy of avoiding clashes with the cartels. In the past, he has said, "You cannot fight violence with violence." And on other occasions, he has argued the government has to address the causes of drug cartel violence, ascribing them to poverty or a lack of opportunities, other than just an innate willingness to be a menace. Having failed to secure a partnership with President Andrés Manuel López, who seemed unwilling to give up the cartel members to the United States, the cartels got even more brazen, attempting new ways to distribute their fentanyl, but in conjunction with other gangs from Latin American countries, who deal in all sorts of narcotics. Although the United States ranks very high on the list of the most well-guarded nations in the world, with well-trained security filling all the spots of entry in a bid to protect the interests of the state, the cartels, who have recently upped their game using all forms of transportation, including drones and submarines, have devised a way to control illicit maritime drug flows. Owing to the cartels' decision to work together towards achieving the same goals, which is to get their products to the most profitable country in the world for narcotics, they easily smuggle $100 billion worth of illicit narcotics to the United States every year. As expected, United States intelligence and law enforcement have been working overtime to combat the seamless flow of these narcotics, but they have come up short, failing massively to stop the largest shipments from not just getting into the United States, but also being easily distributed across the borders. Maritime drug trafficking involves the cultivation, manufacturing, transnational smuggling, and distribution and sale of narcotics over the seas. Latin American countries such as Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Mexico are the largest sources of illegal narcotics to the United States. Transnational criminal organizations in these countries use independent resources to facilitate transportation, especially with vessels like go-fast boats or sometimes semi-submersibles. But more importantly, it is a perfectly organized crime. Hence, it makes it difficult to track them down at the source. For some context, entities all over the world spam their narcotics in every country, especially the United States. While there are so many narcotic dealers around the world, the greatest chunk of these narcotics, including heroin, the white powdered substance, and fentanyl, are all produced in Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, and Mexico, making them one huge transnational organized gang of criminals. After production, the transnational criminal organizations use their resources to connect and operate a supply chain that takes their products out of their respective countries and into the United States, where they have their target audience. While transporting through air and land has become a serious difficulty, as it mostly leads to a firefight with the United States border security and bloodshed follows, harming their business, an unmanned sea behemoth moving across the coastlines and ports without being spotted was the real game changer. Although it involves risks of products like the white powdered narcotics getting ruined if they somehow get touched by water, it reduces visibility, meaning there are fewer firefights and little to no lives are lost on their side of the spectrum. During the Prohibition era in America, bootleggers used to have low-profile riverboats trying to ship the alcohol, which was banned at the time, and then technology and mechanical engineering improved with go-fast boats coming into the fray, symbolizing just how much America has been through when it comes to smuggling. However, the development of sonar and radar technology made even go-fast boats detectable, rendering them useless for a smuggling operation. The cartels, who have become wise to their ways, decided to build something more undetectable even with sonar and radar technology. Ergo, the birth of the narco-submarines. The narco-submarine became a popular gear used directly for narcotic shipment by the transnational criminal organization since the 1990s. As the years rolled by, the cartels easily transported huge tons of narcotics, ranging from opioids to fentanyl and marijuana, almost without detection. The narco-submersibles are rumored to be nearly fully submersible in order to reduce the likelihood of detection by visual, radar, sonar, or infrared systems. More importantly, the cargo capacity varies widely with vessel size. Although these semi-submersibles were created to get completely under the ocean, they are sometimes brought up to the surface to avoid sinking, risking visibility. However, with the advancement of technology and engineering, some contemporary narco-subs are capable of crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Although the Atlantic Ocean-capable semi-submersible was an improvement on what they used to have in the 90s, the transnational criminal organization, wary of the threats of the United States on their business, decided to invest more into their semi-submarines, with hopes of finally getting completely submersible submarines. Following a consistent barrage of private investments into their narco-subs, there were reports of a sighting in the mid-20s, indicating that the cartels had finally made a breakthrough in creating vessels that are durable enough for their operators to attempt voyages across the Pacific to Oceania. Although that was a massive achievement for the cartels, it was an eyesore for countries whose coastline they cruise with this fully submersible submarine, especially the United States, where they sell most of their narcotics. While the cartels have found their footing on the seas, ferrying narcotics via the ocean and the land almost effortlessly, the United States calmly formulated plans and policies that could finally level the playing field. Consequently, the United States improved the radar and sonar technology available to the Coast Guards, especially since they were the first line of defense against maritime narcotic flow. Although the Coast Guards have had some success heavily celebrated in the United States, where they intercept these narco subs, it hasn't completely solved the problem of maritime narcotics flows, with more registered numbers of narcotics entering into the United States via the oceans. Following the consistent failures to identify the narco subs, with only a bit of success here and there, the United States has been rumored to decide to throw caution to the wind. But what might be stopping them? The United States has never been found wanting in aerial dominance, as symbolized by their most recent airstrike against Iran, using the strategic B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, which effectively took out strategic landmarks in Iran during Operation Midnight Hammer on June 22, 2025. While it had geopolitical implications, it was also a reminder of just how capable they are of nuking the cartels to dust should they decide to let loose, throwing the United Nations Charter Article 2, Section 4 to the wind and damning the consequences. However, international laws and diplomacy have often stopped them in their tracks, at least until recently, when rumors of another narco submarine with the biggest shipment of narcotics, opioids, and fentanyl to have ever graced the surface of the earth, making its way towards the United States. Although these reports are unconfirmed, the rumors continue to grow stronger, with more speculations going around the dark web on just how massive it could be. Are there rules that stop a military engagement on the narco submarine? In a bid to ensure fairness and protection of life, regardless of whose it is, ranging from hardened criminals to saints, there are international laws and guidelines that thwart huge plans, especially when the war is semantically asymmetrical. The narco submarines are not retrofitted with weapon systems that could take on a United States military approach and win. Therefore, using military-grade weapons would be like bringing a chainsaw to a nail fight, which is completely against the rules of engagement and humanitarian laws. Although these laws exist to protect lives, the United States continues to lose the lives of its citizens because of an opioid trade from Latin American countries, which has completely invaded their social space, claiming the lives of old and young while driving up crime rates. These continuous bombardments from the maritime narcotics trade have been rumored to have hit the United States so hard this time, and they are considering unleashing a carrier-based fighter jet, with one name recurring all the time, the F-35 Lightning C. The speculated intention is to unleash the fighter jet from the U.S. Carl Vinson CVN-70 on the Colombian Solidarity International Bridge, where the United States Customs and Border Protection officers seized $1.5 million in the white powdered narcotics. The seizure occurred on June 22, 2025, when a CBP officer referred a 2006 utility trailer for secondary inspection. Very quickly, a K9 and X-ray inspection led to the discovery of 50 packages containing over 110 pounds of narcotics within the trailer. Following the incredible amount of shipment that was intercepted, the speculations for a possible release of the fighter jet at the Colombian port to destabilize their narcotic operation got even stronger. Whether or not the United States decides to go through with the rumored plan and deal with the humanitarian laws and the United Nations later, or keep negotiating a way to get military presence in Mexico with President Claudia Sheinbaum, who has flatly refused, remains to be seen. They said it was a UFO lie. Turns out it was a cover-up. The United States Air Force's brand new anti-gravity aircraft is flying without wings, without sound, and without being seen. Recent footage shows a black triangle jet that moves like a ghost and fires lasers from miles away. Built in total secrecy, this thing shouldn't exist, but it does. Is this the start of a new space race? Or has the US already won a war the world didn't know was happening? Join us as the USAF tests its brand new, undetectable anti-gravity aircraft. A seismic shift has occurred within the secured corridors of the Pentagon, one that challenges everything the public thought they knew about American military capabilities. Defense officials have quietly acknowledged the existence of anti-gravity aircraft technology so revolutionary it reads like fiction torn from the pages of a classified thriller. The admission centers around a triangular craft designated TR-3B, an aircraft that operates on principles that shatter conventional aviation understanding. This isn't the standard fighter jet pushing through air resistance. The TR-3B harnesses electromagnetic propulsion, creating a localized gravitational field that allows it to slice through the atmosphere at speeds reaching 7,000 miles per hour. To put this in perspective, the fastest traditional military aircraft struggles to exceed 2,500 miles per hour. What makes this revelation truly explosive isn't just the speed, it's the invisibility. The TR-3B employs a dual-layer stealth system that renders it undetectable to both sophisticated radar networks and human observation. The first layer utilizes advanced electromagnetic field manipulation, bending radar waves around the aircraft like water flowing around a stone. The second layer involves adaptive camouflage technology that displays real-time imagery on the craft's surface, effectively making it transparent to ground observers. Military sources describe witnessing test flights where the triangular aircraft performs vertical takeoffs, hovers motionless for extended periods, then accelerates to hypersonic speeds within seconds, maneuvers that would crush any human pilot under impossible G-forces. The craft measures approximately 600 feet in length and 300 feet in width, yet produces virtually no sound signature during operation. But why reveal this technology now? The timing coincides with an unexpected intelligence cooperation between the United States and Mexico that few anticipated. Despite Mexico's public tensions with American border policies, classified channels reveal a different story. Mexican intelligence agencies have quietly deployed over 10,000 troops along their northern border, not to resist American pressure, but to coordinate in an unprecedented anti-cartel operation. The connection becomes clear when examining recent high-value extraditions. Mexican authorities have transferred dozens of cartel leadership figures to United States custody with remarkable efficiency. Intelligence reports indicate that major trafficking organizations are experiencing widespread panic and operational confusion. Their traditional smuggling routes have been compromised, and their communication networks systematically dismantled. The TR-3B technology plays a crucial role in this shadow war. The aircraft's undetectable surveillance capabilities allow real-time monitoring of cartel movements across vast desert territories. Traditional detection methods, radar installations, ground sensors, and even satellite imagery cannot track these craft as they gather intelligence on trafficking operations. What disturbs intelligence analysts most is the implications beyond border security. If the United States possesses anti-gravity technology capable of such speeds and stealth capabilities, what other nations might be developing similar programs? Recent UFO disclosures by multiple governments suggest this technology isn't uniquely American. The TR-3B represents more than advanced engineering. It signals a fundamental shift in military power projection. An aircraft that can travel anywhere on Earth within hours, remain completely undetected, and operate independently of traditional fuel logistics changes every strategic calculation. Defense contractors involved in the program remain tight-lipped, but leaked documents suggest the technology originated from decades of research at classified facilities. The electromagnetic propulsion system reportedly draws inspiration from theoretical physics that most universities don't teach in mainstream programs. The question now isn't whether this technology exists. The Pentagon's acknowledgement settles that debate. The real question is how long they've possessed these capabilities and what other revolutionary systems remain hidden in the shadows of America's most classified programs. But the TR-3B revelation represents only the surface of America's classified arsenal being unleashed from the Nevada desert. What more is yet known? Behind the razor wire and armed patrols of Area 51, engineers have completed development of weapon systems that redefine the concept of military dominance. The $12 billion investment has produced three revolutionary technologies that foreign defense analysts describe as fundamentally altering the balance of global power. The centerpiece emerges from Lockheed Martin's secretive laser laboratories, the LW-2 system. This 450-kilowatt directed energy weapon operates at power levels that dwarf previous military lasers. The system can maintain sustained fire for extended periods, drawing energy from high-frequency generators that produce enough electricity to power a small city. During classified tests in the Mojave Desert, the LW-2 melted through armored steel plating from distances exceeding 30 kilometers, a range that places enemy aircraft, missiles, and ground vehicles in immediate danger before they can detect the source of attack. What makes the LW-2 particularly devastating is its dual-mode operation. The first mode operates at standard power levels for intercepting incoming missiles and drones, neutralizing threats within seconds of detection. The second mode unleashes the weapon's full 450-kilowatt potential, capable of slicing through military-grade titanium like heated butter. Intelligence reports from allied nations indicate that Russian and Chinese defense planners are scrambling to develop countermeasures for directed energy weapons of this magnitude. Complementing the laser system, the Hyperstrike missile program has achieved breakthrough penetration capabilities that render existing air defense systems obsolete. These hypersonic projectiles travel at Mach 12, nearly 10 times the speed of sound, while maintaining precision guidance through GPS integration and advanced Doppler radar targeting. The missiles employ adaptive flight paths that adjust in real time to evade interception attempts, making them effectively unstoppable against current defensive technologies. Defense contractors conducted live-fire tests against mock-ups of Russia's S-400 system and America's own Patriot batteries. The Hyperstrike missiles penetrated every defensive configuration attempted, reaching their targets with mathematical precision. Foreign intelligence services monitoring these tests reportedly classified the results as representing a paradigm shift in strategic missile technology. The third component of Area 51's weapon trinity involves autonomous combat drones that operate with unprecedented lethality. These unmanned aircraft achieve kill rates of 99.7% accuracy during combat simulations, surpassing human-piloted aircraft by significant margins. The drones process targeting data through artificial intelligence systems that identify, track, and engage multiple threats simultaneously while coordinating attacks with other autonomous units. During extended testing phases, these drones demonstrated operational endurance exceeding 10,000 flight hours before requiring maintenance, a capability that allows sustained combat operations across multiple theaters without human intervention. The AI targeting systems analyze thermal signatures, radar profiles, and movement patterns to distinguish between military and civilian targets, with precision that eliminates collateral damage concerns that have plagued previous drone programs. The weapon's integration extends beyond individual systems. Engineers have successfully mounted LW-2 laser arrays on autonomous drone platforms, creating airborne weapons that combine the mobility of unmanned flight with the destructive power of directed energy systems. These hybrid platforms can patrol vast territories, engage targets at extreme ranges, and disappear into controlled airspace without leaving evidence of their presence. Intelligence analysts from NATO countries have privately expressed concerns about the strategic implications of these combined technologies. The ability to deploy autonomous weapons with such precision and power fundamentally changes military planning assumptions that have guided defense strategies for decades. The completion of these programs signals that the United States has moved beyond experimental military technology into operational deployment of systems that foreign adversaries cannot currently match or effectively counter. But what happens when these devastating weapons are placed under the control of artificial minds that never hesitate, never fear, and never question orders? Inside the classified test facilities of Edwards Air Force Base, a chilling transformation is taking place. Human pilots are being systematically replaced by artificial intelligence systems that process combat decisions at speeds no biological brain can match. The sixth-generation NGAD fighter jets now operate with AI pilots that react to threats in microseconds, turning aerial combat into a realm where human reflexes have become obsolete. The AI systems governing these aircraft operate through neural networks that analyze thousands of variables simultaneously. Enemy aircraft type, weather conditions, fuel levels, ammunition status, and threat assessments all flow through processors that make tactical decisions faster than a human pilot can blink. During recent test flights over the Nevada desert, NGAD jets piloted by AI engaged multiple simulated targets while performing maneuvers that would render human pilots unconscious from G-force pressure. What unsettles military observers most is watching these machines operate in complete silence. The AI systems communicate through encrypted data bursts, coordinating attacks and defensive formations without any human voice breaking radio silence. Squadron formations of unmanned fighters execute complex battle plans with mathematical precision, each aircraft knowing exactly where its wingmen will be at any given moment. Artificial intelligence has evolved beyond simple programming. Machine learning algorithms analyze combat footage from conflicts worldwide, studying human pilot techniques and improving upon them. The AI has learned to anticipate enemy movements by recognizing patterns that escape human observation. It identifies the subtle changes in aircraft positioning that signal an incoming attack, responding with countermeasures before human pilots realize a threat exists. Drone swarms represent the most disturbing evolution of this technology. Formations of 30 autonomous aircraft operate as a collective intelligence, with each drone sharing sensor data instantaneously across the network. When one drone identifies a target, the entire swarm knows its location, capabilities, and optimal attack vectors within milliseconds. The collective decision-making process eliminates the hesitation and uncertainty that affects human combat units. During classified exercises, these drone swarms have demonstrated tactical creativity that alarms military strategists. The AI develops attack patterns that human commanders never taught it, finding solutions to combat scenarios through pure algorithmic analysis. In one test scenario, a swarm of 20 drones defeated a larger force of human-piloted aircraft by coordinating simultaneous attacks from multiple directions while jamming enemy communications. The speed of AI decision-making creates scenarios where human oversight becomes impossible. Combat situations that previously allowed time for human judgment now unfold in seconds. The AI identifies threats, selects weapons, and engages targets faster than human operators can process what is happening. Military commanders find themselves monitoring AI combat decisions rather than making them. Foreign intelligence agencies have detected similar AI pilot programs in development across multiple nations. Chinese military exercises now feature formations of unmanned fighters operating with coordination patterns that suggest advanced artificial intelligence control. Russian aerospace forces have conducted tests with autonomous aircraft that demonstrate tactical behaviors beyond current programming capabilities. The strategic implications terrify defense analysts who understand the technology. Wars fought between AI-controlled military forces could escalate and conclude before human decision-makers can intervene. The artificial minds piloting these aircraft operate without emotional constraints, fear, or self-preservation instincts that have historically limited the intensity of human combat. Military ethicists raise uncomfortable questions about autonomous weapons that select and engage targets without human authorization. The AI systems demonstrate remarkable accuracy in identifying military versus civilian targets during controlled tests, but real combat environments present complexities that no simulation can fully replicate. The transformation from human to artificial control represents more than technological advancement. It signals the emergence of warfare conducted at superhuman speeds by minds that process combat as mathematical equations rather than life and death struggles. While artificial minds wage war at superhuman speeds, an even more terrifying weapon emerges from America's most classified aerospace programs. But can any defense system on Earth detect it? The B-21 Phantom represents the culmination of decades spent perfecting the art of invisible warfare. This $630 million strategic bomber embodies stealth technology so advanced that radar operators describe it as a ghost that appears and vanishes from their screens like a digital hallucination. Unlike previous stealth aircraft that simply reduced radar signatures, the B-21 operates through active electromagnetic manipulation that bends detection waves around its airframe. The aircraft's construction utilizes metamaterials that didn't exist when earlier bombers were designed. These engineered substances interact with electromagnetic radiation in ways that natural materials cannot achieve. The B-21's skin contains millions of microscopic structures that absorb and redirect radar energy, creating what engineers describe as an electromagnetic black hole. When radar waves strike the bomber's surface, they disappear into the metamaterial matrix rather than bouncing back to detection arrays. Northrop Grumman's engineers spent 7 years developing the B-21's revolutionary airframe geometry. Every surface angle, every curve, and every panel junction has been calculated to minimize the aircraft's electromagnetic footprint. The bomber's triangular design channels radar waves away from its source through carefully engineered deflection patterns. Even the engine intakes employ serpentine ducts that hide the hot metal components from infrared detection systems. The B-21's stealth capabilities extend beyond passive radar evasion. Active countermeasure systems generate electromagnetic interference that confuses enemy tracking networks. When hostile radar installations attempt to lock onto the bomber, the aircraft responds with precisely calibrated jamming signals that create false targets and phantom contacts across enemy screens. Air defense operators find themselves tracking dozens of ghost aircraft while the real B-21 slips through their coverage zones undetected. What makes the B-21 truly revolutionary is its integration with artificial intelligence networks that manage every aspect of its stealth operations. The AI continuously monitors electromagnetic emissions from the aircraft, adjusting power levels and system configurations to maintain minimal detectability. When the bomber enters contested airspace, the AI automatically optimizes flight paths to exploit gaps in enemy radar coverage that human pilots might never notice. The artificial intelligence also coordinates with satellite networks and reconnaissance drones to create real-time maps of enemy air defenses. The AI processes this intelligence to calculate optimal attack routes that avoid detection while positioning the bomber for maximum target effectiveness. During classified penetration tests, B-21s equipped with this AI guidance system have successfully infiltrated airspace protected by the most advanced surface-to-air missile systems without triggering a single alarm. The bomber's weapons bay can accommodate nuclear warheads, hypersonic missiles, or conventional munitions, depending on mission requirements. The internal payload configuration prevents external weapons from compromising the aircraft's stealth profile. When the weapons bay opens to release ordnance, the AI timing system ensures that the exposure window lasts only milliseconds, too brief for most detection systems to register the temporary signature change. Military analysts studying the B-21's capabilities describe it as representing a fundamental shift in strategic warfare. The bomber can penetrate any existing air defense network, deliver devastating strikes against high-value targets, and escape without enemy forces, knowing they've been attacked until explosions light up their facilities. This capability effectively renders traditional air defense investments obsolete. Intelligence reports indicate that foreign adversaries are investing billions in developing detection technology specifically designed to counter the B-21's stealth systems. Chinese and Russian military laboratories are experimenting with quantum radar systems and low-frequency detection arrays that might reveal stealth aircraft through unconventional methods. However, early test results suggest that the B-21's adaptive countermeasures can evolve faster than enemy detection systems can adapt. The production timeline calls for at least 100 B-21 bombers to enter service by 2035, with the potential for expanded orders if global tensions escalate. Each aircraft represents not just a weapons platform, but a technological achievement that demonstrates American aerospace superiority over any potential adversary. But what happens when the military's stealth revolution meets the forgotten dream of supersonic passenger flight? The answer lies buried in decades of aviation history, where one of humanity's greatest transportation achievements became its most spectacular commercial failure. The Concorde, that needle-nose symbol of supersonic elegance, dominated the skies from 1976 to 2003 before vanishing forever. Its downfall wasn't just about economics or safety concerns. It was about a fundamental problem that has haunted supersonic flight since Chuck Yeager first broke the sound barrier in 1947. The sonic boom. That thunderous crack that follows any aircraft flying faster than 767 miles per hour creates a carpet of noise stretching up to 70 miles behind the aircraft. When the Concorde flew over populated areas, windows shattered, buildings shook, and entire communities lived under a blanket of explosive sound. The Federal Aviation Administration banned supersonic flights over cities in 1973, effectively killing the commercial viability of faster-than-sound travel. For decades, this seemed like an unsolvable physics problem. Sound waves compress and stack upon each other when an aircraft exceeds the speed of sound, creating massive shock waves that release energy equivalent to continuous explosions. Every attempt to control this phenomenon failed, leaving supersonic passenger travel as nothing more than a museum exhibit. Then NASA and Lockheed Martin's secretive Skunk Works division, the same team behind some of America's most classified military aircraft, decided to rewrite the rules of supersonic flight entirely. Their X-59 QuiSST project represents something that aviation experts once declared impossible: an aircraft that flies faster than sound while producing less noise than a closing car door. The X-59's radical design breaks every conventional rule of aircraft construction. Its elongated nose stretches nearly one-third of the aircraft's 100-foot length, designed to absorb and manage shock waves before they can merge into devastating sonic booms. The cockpit has no forward-facing windows. Pilots navigate using a sophisticated camera system that provides crystal-clear forward visibility through high-resolution displays. This isn't just experimental curiosity. The X-59 represents a direct pathway to reviving commercial supersonic travel, with noise levels reduced from the Concorde's ear-splitting 110 decibels to just 75 decibels, quieter than normal conversation. If successful, it could lift the decades-old ban on supersonic flights over land, opening routes that would shrink global travel times dramatically. Meanwhile, private companies like Boom Supersonic are already building commercial aircraft based on these breakthrough technologies. Their Overture passenger jet promises to carry 80 passengers at Mach 1.7, cutting flight times from New York to London to just 3.5 hours. United Airlines has already placed orders for 15 aircraft, with options for 35 more. The convergence is unmistakable. The same advanced materials, stealth technologies, and aerodynamic principles driving military aircraft development are now revolutionizing civilian supersonic flight. What began as classified military research is becoming the foundation for a new era of transportation that could transform how humanity moves across the planet. A thunderous roar shattered the stillness as Israeli F-15 fighter jets launched a powerful first strike, leveling a key Iranian military base in seconds. In a bold show of strength, these fourth-generation warplanes reminded the world they're still a force to reckon with. But what are the real capabilities behind this surprise attack? And how has Iran responded to this escalating air campaign? Join us as we uncover how Israel's F-15 fighter jets launched a devastating first strike that wiped an Iranian military base off the map. Israel recently declared that it now holds a commanding advantage in the skies, just days into the major operation that targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure and military capabilities. The aim of the campaign is to significantly weaken Iran's defense systems, including the destruction of many surface-to-air missile launchers scattered across the country. At the heart of the aerial assault is Israel's advanced fleet of F-35 Iron stealth fighter jets, which flew missions deep into Iranian airspace. These fifth-generation aircraft are supported by older fourth-generation jets like the F-16 and F-15. While the older jets lack the stealth features of the F-35I, they are still being used effectively, particularly to drop low-cost glide bombs on a range of Iranian military targets. On Sunday, Israeli fighter jets carried out a strike on the airport in the eastern Iranian city of Mashhad. The city lies over 1,400 miles from Israeli territory, making the mission Israel's longest-range attack since the start of its bombing campaign. This strike not only highlights Israel's deep strike capabilities, but also demonstrates its ability to operate in Iranian airspace with minimal resistance. According to the Institute for the Study of War, a conflict research center based in Washington, D.C., these airstrikes on Iranian military airports and air defense systems will likely limit Iran's ability to push back against Israeli operations from within its own airspace. By degrading Iran's ability to track, intercept, or defend against incoming aircraft, Israel is attempting to maintain full aerial dominance as it continues its offensive. Israel's military has also employed more cost-effective methods to extend the reach and frequency of its operations. Its aircraft are using joint direct attack munitions, simple gravity bombs that have been upgraded with affordable guidance kits. These kits, produced by American defense contractor Boeing, convert standard unguided bombs into precision-guided weapons. Although JDAMs are not classified as standoff weapons, meaning they must be released closer to their targets, they offer a balance of accuracy and affordability. The ability to deliver these precision strikes with older aircraft equipped with JDAMs allows Israel to conserve its most advanced assets while still delivering powerful blows to Iranian military sites. These weapons enable Israel to strike a variety of locations, from radar installations and command centers to missile storage facilities and airports, all while minimizing the risk of civilian casualties and conserving high-end resources. Israeli fighter jets have not only relied on American-made JDAMs during their campaign against Iran, but have also been seen carrying locally developed spice bombs. These bombs, similar in function to JDAMs, use advanced guidance kits to transform ordinary, unguided bombs into precise strike weapons. The SPICE system, short for SMART, Precise Impact, Cost-Effective, was developed by Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, an Israeli defense company. Open-source intelligence sources have confirmed the presence of both JDAMs and spice bombs in Israeli airstrikes across Iranian territory, including around the capital, Tehran. The use of these affordable yet highly accurate weapons signals that Israel is able to hit strategic targets without having to rely exclusively on its more costly missile systems. This gives the Israeli military a broader set of tools and more flexibility in how it chooses to strike. Analysts have also mentioned that Israel's ability to fire these smart bombs without much concern for Iranian air defenses reflects its current aerial dominance. The combination of precision and lower cost has allowed Israel to maintain a high tempo of attacks while preserving more expensive and limited munitions for other priorities. On the other side of the conflict, Iran has responded by launching over 370 ballistic missiles at Israel since Friday, firing them in waves aimed at overwhelming Israeli defenses. Government figures from Israel indicate that at least 30 of these missiles reached impact zones, leading to the deaths of approximately 24 people and injuring more than 590 others. Ballistic missiles are extremely costly, often priced in the millions of dollars per unit. In contrast, a single JDAM can cost only tens of thousands of dollars. And spice bombs, though slightly more advanced, still fall into a more affordable category. The cost disparity highlights how Israel is carrying out its campaign with a more sustainable and cost-effective strategy, while Iran is using up expensive and harder-to-replace missile reserves. By launching multiple missile salvos, Iran is quickly depleting its stockpile of long-range weapons. While Tehran is believed to possess several hundred or possibly even a few thousand ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel, this rate of fire could soon strain its inventory. Israel, for its part, reported on Monday that it has already destroyed one-third of Iran's missile launch platforms, making it more difficult for Iran to continue firing at the same rate. In addition to missiles, Iran has also sent hundreds of drones toward Israel. These unmanned systems, while much cheaper than ballistic missiles, come with their own limitations. The Shahed 136 drone, for example, one of Iran's most widely used models, is estimated to cost as little as $20,000. However, drones move far more slowly than missiles and are easier for air defense systems to detect and intercept. This contrast in cost and effectiveness has become a defining feature of the conflict. Israel's strategy of combining high-end air power with cost-effective precision weapons appears to be working. It is neutralizing key targets deep inside Iran while conserving resources. At the same time, Iran's response, though aggressive and sustained, is burning through critical stockpiles of both missiles and drones, raising questions about how long it can maintain this level of intensity. As the air war continues, Israel's blend of technology, affordability, and tactical advantage is clearly shaping the course of the conflict. Although Israel has maintained air superiority during its current operation against Iran, the continued missile and drone attacks from Tehran are placing a growing financial burden on Israeli defense systems. Each time Iran launches a wave of drones or missiles, Israel is forced to respond with its high-tech air defenses, each of which comes at a steep cost. At the lower end of this cost scale is the Iron Dome system, designed to intercept short-range threats like rockets and small drones. A single interceptor missile from the Iron Dome system is estimated to cost around $50,000. While effective and widely used, the expense adds up quickly when facing dozens or hundreds of incoming threats. For higher altitude or more dangerous projectiles, Israel turns to the Arrow 3 system. This advanced defense platform is capable of intercepting targets in space, but comes with a much higher price tag. Each missile fired costs several $million. As Israel's defense systems worked around the clock to neutralize wave after wave of missiles, it wasn't alone in the effort. American officials have confirmed that United States military forces in the region have been involved in defensive support, helping intercept some of the Iranian missiles aimed at Israel. However, Washington has emphasized that its involvement is limited to defensive efforts, and that it is not participating in any of Israel's offensive strikes against Iran. Behind the scenes, though, U.S. support extended far beyond missile interception. The United States and Israel secretly modified Israel's F-35 warplanes to increase their range, allowing them to strike deep into Iranian territory without refueling and without losing their stealth advantage, according to what two American officials revealed to Middle East Eye. The change, described as classified, was designed specifically to support Israel's major air assault on Iran. These officials, who requested anonymity, confirmed that during the Friday attack on Iran, Israeli F-35s did not use mid-air refueling or land in any nearby countries for fuel. Instead, the aircraft were able to complete their long-distance mission using a new internal fuel system. This system was developed jointly by the United States and Israel, and it does not interfere with the jet's stealth profile, one of its most important features. Israel's customized version of the aircraft is known as the F-35 Adir. This fifth-generation stealth fighter is the only one of its kind that has been modified to such a degree, offering Israel capabilities that are not available to other countries operating the F-35. This change significantly increased the F-35's value as a long-range strategic weapon. The officials also noted that the scale and surprise of Israel's strike on Iran would not have been possible without this upgrade. One of the officials described the development as a game changer and confirmed that American support was critical in making it happen. While the technical details of the upgrade remain classified, defense analysts believe the system involves the use of additional internal fuel tanks, likely installed in such a way that they do not affect the aircraft's radar cross-section. This would preserve the jet's stealth shape while extending its mission range. The upgrade is not just important for Israel's defense strategy, it's likely to be noticed by other powers as well. Military observers across the Middle East are expected to study the F-35 performance during the operation closely. And beyond the region, rivals like Russia and China will also be paying attention to how the F-35 was used in real combat and what that means for future conflicts. This cooperation also underlines the depth of military ties between the United States and Israel. Both officials confirmed that the modification was carried out with full involvement from American defense experts, reflecting Washington's ongoing commitment to keeping Israel ahead in high-tech air warfare. One American official declined to give specifics on how the F-35 was modified to carry more fuel, but hinted that some form of external feature had been added. A second official was more direct, stating that Israel attached external drop tanks to its F-35 jets to extend their range for the Iran mission. Aerospace expert Richard Abulafia from Aerodynamic Advisory responded to the news by calling the modification impressive, period. According to him, using drop tanks was likely Israel's only realistic option if it wanted to avoid both mid-air and ground refueling. The real challenge, Abulafia explained, was to develop an interface between the F-35 and external fuel tanks in a way that doesn't compromise its stealth capabilities. He noted that simply attaching tanks isn't enough. The entire fuel delivery and mounting system must be carefully re-engineered to fit within the aircraft's aerodynamic and radar-invisible design. Abulafia described the upgrade as a complex engineering feat, saying, "The Israelis, with American support I assume, practically performed surgery on an existing jet to make it work." The F-35 fighter jet is officially listed as having a combat range of about 700 miles, while the shortest one-way distance between Israel and Iran is roughly 620 miles. This means that a round trip would not be possible without either refueling or significant modifications to extend fuel capacity. Without mid-air refueling and without the ability to land in nearby countries for fuel, Israel's options were extremely limited. One theoretical possibility could have involved using a United States base in the Gulf region or in Azerbaijan, but both officials who spoke to Middle East Eye confirmed that no refueling occurred on American bases. In fact, Azerbaijan publicly denied any involvement. The country's foreign minister, Ceyhun Bayramov, spoke with his Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi, and assured him that Azerbaijan would not allow its airspace or territory to be used for launching attacks on Iran or any other country. Rumors and reports over the last few years had already hinted that Israel was working on ways to extend the F-35's range, especially for missions that required deep penetration into enemy territory. These latest revelations suggest that Israel succeeded, with direct cooperation from the United States. The modification, while still officially secret, represents a significant shift in the capabilities of the F-35 Adir, Israel's version of the stealth fighter. This development not only allowed Israel to carry out a highly complex and long-distance strike, but also signaled the evolution of stealth aircraft technology in active combat settings. The ability to launch deep strikes without refueling while maintaining radar invisibility gives Israel a serious advantage in the region. As more details emerge, analysts around the world are watching closely to understand just how far this new capability can go. Back in the year 2021, Israel's Walla news outlet reported that the Israeli Air Force was actively developing a drop tank system for its fleet of F-35 Adir fighter jets. According to that report, the modification was expected to be completed within 2 years, a timeline that now appears to have aligned closely with Israel's recent air operations. At first glance, attaching an extra fuel tank to a jet might seem like a simple task. However, U.S. officials and aerospace experts stress that when it comes to stealth aircraft, like the F-35, it's a far more complex and delicate process. The F-35 is built with radar-absorbent materials and highly specialized engineering that minimizes detection by enemy radar systems and infrared sensors. Every part of its exterior, internal systems, and overall shape is designed to reduce its radar signature. This means that any physical change, especially the addition of an external tank, could potentially compromise the jet's stealth capabilities. One of the major technical concerns comes from what happens after the drop tank is released mid-flight. According to a 2021 article by the Aviationist magazine, once the tank is detached, the jet is left with exposed attachment points and fuel line ports. These areas are not covered by radar-absorbing coatings, which could make the aircraft vulnerable to radar detection at a critical point during its mission. This issue presents a serious design challenge: how to create a fuel delivery system that can be ejected when empty, yet leave behind no exposed surfaces that would reflect radar waves. Solving that problem requires significant innovation in materials, fuel systems, and aircraft structure, especially when trying to keep the aircraft within the stealth specifications that give it an edge over other fighter jets. The Walla report from 2021 indicated that Israel's Air Force was leading this effort independently, but it is now clear, based on recent U.S. sources, that American defense experts also took part in helping Israel complete the project. Still, American officials have declined to share any technical details regarding how exactly the modification was carried out. The engineering behind the F-35 remains highly classified, and even the smallest structural changes are considered sensitive. While neither Israel nor the U.S. has officially confirmed the drop tank's design or functionality, the fact that Israeli F-35s were able to strike deep inside Iranian territory without refueling strongly suggests that the modification was both completed and successfully tested under real combat conditions. But just as Israel showcased the extended reach of its stealth jets, Iran responded with a bold claim of its own. Tehran has declared that it successfully downed a fourth Israeli F-35 stealth fighter jet, stating that it was intercepted by Iranian air defense forces while flying over the city of Tabriz in northwestern Iran. The latest report, broadcast by Iranian state-run Press TV, stated that the fifth-generation fighter was attempting a high-altitude strike on military facilities in the area when it was detected and destroyed. Iranian officials credited this success to the advanced capabilities of their multi-layered and largely homegrown air defense network, which they say has matured into a reliable and fully functional protective shield. The network reportedly included systems such as the Bavar 373, the Khordad 15, and the Russian-made S-300, all of which are said to be capable of tracking and intercepting even stealth aircraft like the F-35, widely regarded as one of the most advanced combat platforms in the world. Iran claims these defenses have already been tested in real combat conditions. It has provided a sequence of reported encounters with Israeli F-35s. The first Israeli jet was allegedly brought down during an early strike on the Natanz nuclear facility near the central city of Isfahan. Debris from that aircraft, according to Iranian special forces, was recovered near the impact site. The second reported loss took place in the skies near Kermanshah, where Iran's defense units supposedly succeeded in bypassing the F-35's stealth characteristics through what they described as multi-spectrum tracking. A third aircraft was reportedly targeted and destroyed near Bandar Abbas as it approached Iranian naval installations along the southern coastline near the Persian Gulf. Now, with a fourth fighter allegedly downed near Tabriz, Iran claims to have made history by becoming the first country to shoot down 4 fifth-generation stealth jets during a single conflict. Iranian authorities have further stated that 2 Israeli pilots are currently being held in custody, while another was reportedly killed after ejecting from one of the downed jets. Though Iran has not yet released visual proof of any of the interceptions, officials maintain that classified evidence exists to confirm each of the incidents and that further information may be made public in the future. Press TV, reflecting the tone of official statements, described the developments as a major achievement. The broadcaster emphasized that the repeated downing of these high-tech aircraft not only challenges Israeli air dominance, but also exposes weaknesses in the stealth jet's operational effectiveness when faced with an increasingly prepared defense network. While outside verification of Iran's claims remains limited, the reports alone have drawn international attention. If confirmed, the incidents could raise serious questions about the survivability of stealth aircraft in hostile airspace equipped with advanced detection systems. The claims also highlight the ongoing technological arms race in the region and underscore the growing confidence of Iran in its domestic defense capabilities. China has just unveiled a next-generation fighter jet that no other country can compete with. This aircraft can fly from Beijing to New York in under 2 hours, a speed once thought impossible. But what truly sets it apart is its silent flight, making it completely undetectable and the stealthiest aircraft ever created. How fast is this incredible machine? How did China overcome the decades-old challenge of the sonic boom? Join us as we uncover the secrets behind China's revolutionary superjet, equipped with a one-of-a-kind silencer that could change air combat forever. In October 2024, Chinese space transportation company, also known as Beijing Linhong Tianxing Technology Cooperation Limited, successfully tested the Yongxing prototype, a supersonic jet unlike any other ever made. During the flight, the aircraft reached speeds of Mach 4, around 3,069 miles per hour, twice as fast as the retired Concorde. This breakthrough proved that ultra-fast travel could significantly reduce flight times while remaining efficient. The test focused on key aspects of the Yongxing's performance, such as aerodynamics, heat resistance, and flight control. Flying at supersonic speeds creates intense heat and pressure, so the aircraft needed strong materials to withstand these extreme conditions. Advanced composite materials help the Yongxing stay durable and stable even at high speeds. A key feature of the aircraft is its vertical takeoff and landing capability, which allows it to operate in different airport settings without requiring long runways. Additionally, it is designed to cruise at around 65,600 feet, much higher than regular airliners, helping it avoid turbulence and reduce congestion in busy airspace. The jet's impressive performance comes from several cutting-edge technologies, with its propulsion system being the most important. Space Transportation developed a powerful detonation ramjet engine called the Jindu-Yun or Jindu 400. Unlike regular jet engines that rely on continuous combustion, the Jindu-Yun engine uses a special pulse detonation system. This advanced technology burns fuel in rapid bursts instead of a steady stream, making the engine more efficient and allowing the aircraft to reach higher speeds while using less fuel. The engine is also designed for high-altitude flight, where thinner air reduces drag and improves fuel efficiency, making supersonic travel more practical and affordable. Another key advantage of the Yongxing is its high lift-to-drag ratio, which improves aerodynamics. Engineers carefully shape the aircraft and use lightweight, advanced materials to reduce air resistance while keeping the plane stable at extreme speeds. This saves fuel and ensures a smoother ride, making supersonic travel more comfortable. The Yongxing is built with special heat-resistant materials, including carbon composites and strong metal alloys, to withstand the intense heat generated at high speeds. These materials help the aircraft maintain its strength even in extreme conditions. Additionally, it features an advanced noise reduction system to minimize the sonic boom that occurs when breaking the sound barrier, one of the biggest challenges that led to the Concorde's retirement. In truth, the Yongxing jet's abilities go far beyond those of the Concorde, the famous Anglo-French supersonic jet that flew from 1976 to 2003. While the Concorde was groundbreaking, it was eventually retired due to high operating costs, strict noise regulations, and environmental concerns. With a top speed of Mach 2, it could cross the Atlantic in under 4 hours. Fast, but still not fast enough to make global supersonic travel practical. The Yongxing, however, is twice as fast as the Concorde and a front-runner in the return of supersonic air travel. Space Transportation has used advanced materials and a powerful new propulsion system to overcome the problems that limited the Concorde, aiming to make supersonic flights more affordable, quieter, and better for the environment. Other companies are also developing supersonic passenger planes. For example, the American company Boom Supersonic is developing the Overture, a jet expected to fly at Mach 2.2 and restart transatlantic supersonic flights by 2029. While Overture is an exciting step forward, the Yongxing's higher speed and efficiency make it the most ambitious project in this new era of supersonic travel. Despite its exciting advancements, the Yongxing still faces several challenges before it can be used for commercial flights. One of the biggest concerns is its impact on the environment. Supersonic jets typically release more emissions than regular commercial planes, making it essential to find cleaner fuel alternatives. Space Transportation is aware of this issue and actively works on eco-friendly aviation fuels and new propulsion technologies to reduce the aircraft's carbon footprint. Another major challenge is noise pollution. When a plane breaks the sound barrier, it creates a loud sonic boom, which has led to strict regulations on supersonic flights over land. To solve this problem, Space Transportation is developing advanced noise reduction technology to soften the sonic boom. If successful, the Yongxing could fly over cities without causing major disruptions. Safety is also a key focus. Flying at Mach 4 has unique risks, so the jet must undergo extensive testing to protect passengers. Space Transportation invests in cutting-edge flight control systems, emergency response measures, and advanced cabin pressurization technology. Their goal is to make supersonic travel as safe as, or even safer than, today's commercial flights. Space Transportation plans to continue testing the Yongxing's engine over the next few years, aiming to launch a full-sized supersonic passenger plane for its first flight by 2027. If successful, the Yongxing could revolutionize global travel by making faraway destinations easier to reach and cutting flight times to record-breaking levels. Another major goal is making the Yongxing commercially viable. In the past, supersonic flights were expensive and mainly reserved for the wealthy. However, new advancements in fuel efficiency and aerodynamics could help lower costs, making high-speed travel more affordable for more people. Space transportation envisions a future where supersonic flights are not just a luxury, but a regular part of global air travel. The project also has big geopolitical implications. China's rapid progress in aviation shows its ambition to compete with Western aerospace giants like Boeing and Airbus. By leading the way in supersonic travel, China could gain a strong foothold in the future of commercial aviation, shaping the next era of high-speed flight. China has also made another groundbreaking advancement in hypersonic flight technology, revealing that its newly developed engine has reached operational speeds of up to Mach 16. The engine, known as an oblique detonation engine, ODE, is designed to run on standard aviation kerosene and has undergone extensive testing at the JF-12 shock tunnel in Beijing. This facility, one of the world's most advanced, can replicate hypersonic flight conditions, allowing scientists to evaluate propulsion systems under extreme speeds and pressures. The JF-12 shock tunnel, managed by the Institute of Mechanics at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, CAS, played a crucial role in these experiments. During the tests, scientists successfully maintained oblique detonation waves using RP3 jet fuel, a common aviation fuel. This achievement marks a major step forward, as sustaining stable combustion at such high speeds has long been a challenge in hypersonic propulsion. The remarkable test results showed combustion rates 1,000 times faster than those observed in traditional scramjet engines. According to reports, the engine demonstrated an operational speed range between Mach 6 and Mach 16. To put this into perspective, Mach 16 translates to approximately 12,276 miles per hour. Despite the success of the test, there were some limitations due to the constraints of the JF-12 wind tunnel. Scientists could only sustain travel at Mach 9 for approximately 492 feet because the tunnel's power supply could only support operations for 50 milliseconds. Although brief, this short testing window provided valuable insights into the engine's ignition process and performance under extreme speeds. Researchers analyzed critical aspects such as fuel ignition, combustion stability, and overall engine efficiency, which are essential for the future development of hypersonic propulsion. One of the oblique detonation engine's most significant advantages is its unique ability to utilize shock waves to enhance combustion. Unlike traditional scramjet engines, which often struggle with flameouts at extremely high speeds, the oblique detonation engine turns shock waves into an advantage, using them to sustain combustion more efficiently. Scientists strategically placed a small 5mm bump on the engine's combustor wall to improve this process. This seemingly minor adjustment played a crucial role by inducing a self-sustaining, shockwave-driven explosion, significantly increasing combustion efficiency and generating more thrust. Another striking feature of the oblique detonation engine is its compact and lightweight design. The engine's combustor is reportedly 85% shorter than a conventional scramjet, significantly reducing overall weight. A lighter engine means a more efficient aircraft with an extended flight range, making hypersonic travel more practical for both military and commercial applications. Additionally, weight reduction allows for greater payload capacity, opening new possibilities for aerospace engineering, such as carrying more fuel, passengers, or advanced weaponry. The scientists also addressed one of the biggest challenges in hypersonic propulsion: ignition delays. Like many other hydrocarbon fuels, RP3 kerosene has long ignition delays, which can interfere with performance at high speeds. To overcome this issue, the CAS team developed an innovative approach. They pre-compressed the RP3 fuel to an extremely high temperature of 6,380 degrees Fahrenheit before testing. This preheating process helped the fuel ignite more quickly and reliably. Additionally, they incorporated wing-shaped struts to improve fuel spread and distribution, ensuring a more consistent and efficient combustion process even at record-breaking speeds. These combined innovations resulted in a more powerful, responsive, and reliable engine, paving the way for the next generation of hypersonic aircraft. China's goal of developing a hypersonic aircraft capable of reaching Mach 16 by 2030 has gained new momentum with these groundbreaking tests. This technology could revolutionize global travel, cutting flight times dramatically. For instance, a trip from Beijing to New York, which currently takes over 13 hours on a conventional airliner, could be completed in under an hour. This breakthrough could majorly impact commercial aviation, cargo transport, and emergency response operations, allowing for faster deliveries, quicker evacuations, and more efficient global connectivity. Beyond civilian applications, hypersonic technology has enormous military implications. Countries worldwide are racing to develop hypersonic weapons and aircraft due to their strategic advantages in missile technology, surveillance, and rapid deployment. Using today's air defense systems, a hypersonic aircraft or drone flying at Mach 16 would be nearly impossible to track or intercept. If China successfully integrates this technology into its military, it could lead to a new generation of ultra-fast missiles capable of evading enemy defenses. Additionally, hypersonic drones could be deployed for high-speed reconnaissance or precision strikes, further strengthening China's military capabilities. China's progress in hypersonic propulsion is part of a larger global competition to dominate high-speed flight technology. The United States, Russia, and other nations have been developing hypersonic engines, with some focusing on scramjets, while others explore more advanced detonation-based propulsion systems. Its ability to sustain stable detonation combustion using standard aviation fuel sets China apart. Unlike hypersonic engines requiring specialized hard-to-source fuels, China's oblique detonation engine runs on widely available RP3 kerosene. This makes integration into existing aircraft and military platforms more practical, giving China an advantage in cost and deployment. Despite these impressive achievements, major challenges must be solved before a full-scale hypersonic aircraft can become a reality. One of the biggest hurdles is heat management. At Mach 16, an aircraft's exterior would face extreme temperatures, potentially exceeding 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Standard materials would weaken or melt under such conditions. To address this, scientists are exploring cutting-edge solutions, including heat-resistant alloys, carbon-carbon composites, and advanced cooling systems that protect the aircraft's structure. Successfully overcoming these challenges will make hypersonic flight a practical and sustainable technology. Another major challenge is maintaining stability and control at such extreme speeds. To steer and balance, traditional aircraft use wings, rudders, and other aerodynamic surfaces. Still, these become far less effective at hypersonic velocities due to intense air resistance and unpredictable shockwave interactions. To solve this, researchers are exploring new flight control methods, including adaptive systems that adjust in real time, plasma-based flow control to manipulate air movement, and artificial intelligence-driven stability mechanisms to keep the aircraft on course. Fuel efficiency is another critical hurdle. While the oblique detonation engine significantly improves combustion efficiency compared to scramjets, sustaining long-distance hypersonic travel requires a reliable and efficient fuel system. Fuel burns extremely fast at such speeds, meaning a steady and optimized supply is crucial. Scientists are investigating hybrid propulsion systems that combine the ODE with other technologies, such as rocket boosters for takeoff and air-breathing engines for cruising, to extend flight range without sacrificing speed. China's progress in hypersonic technology has major geopolitical implications. Developing a Mach 16 engine strengthens its position in aerospace innovation and signals its intent to challenge dominant players like the United States. After the retirement of the Concorde in 2003, American companies largely abandoned supersonic passenger travel. However, when intel came that China planned on building a superjet with a silencer, NASA and Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works team launched the Low-Boom Flight Demonstrator program to address the biggest obstacle of the Concorde: sonic booms. This led to the development of the X-59 QuiSST, Quiet Supersonic Technology, an aircraft designed to drastically reduce noise levels associated with breaking the sound barrier. Often called the son of Concorde, the X-59 aims to prove that supersonic aircraft can operate with noise levels comparable to subsonic planes. Unlike traditional supersonic jets that create disruptive shock waves, the X-59 is engineered to distribute shock waves evenly along its fuselage. This prevents them from merging into a loud double boom, producing a sound like a car door closing. The aircraft features a long, thin nose and engine mounted on top, and an external vision system instead of a traditional forward-facing cockpit window. These design choices help control shockwave formation and reduce ground noise. Standing 94 feet long with a 29.5-foot wingspan, it weighs 32,300 pounds at takeoff. Powered by a General Electric F414 GE100 engine, it can reach Mach 1.42 at 55,000 feet, nearly 25,000 feet higher than a typical commercial airliner. To accelerate its development, the engineers in charge have incorporated existing components from other aircraft. The landing gear comes from the F-16, cockpit elements from the Northrop T-38 Talon, and the control stick from the F-117 stealth fighter. The final assembly was completed at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works in Palmdale, California, with taxi testing, and the first flight is expected soon. The X-59 may seem like a Frankenstein plane, but even the most skilled engineers must work within a budget. Designing every component from scratch would take Lockheed Martin years of development, testing, and certification. In aviation, time is often more valuable than money. One of the X-59's biggest achievements is reducing the noise of its sonic boom. The Concorde had a noise level between 105 and 110 PL decibels, while the X-59 is designed to produce only 75 PL decibels, a major improvement. The aircraft's frame is mostly aluminum, but key parts like the steering system and wing skin are made of lightweight composite materials. The tail section faces higher temperatures and is built from titanium alloys. Instead of relying heavily on wind tunnel testing, the Skunk Works team used thousands of computer simulations to shape the aircraft and predict airflow behavior. By modeling how air moves around the plane, they could precisely control how sound waves are produced and spread. In early 2023, the team tested the X-59's cruising performance, and the results were within 10% of their predictions, proving the accuracy of their digital simulations. Of course, no futuristic aircraft is without trade-offs. The X-59 has no forward-facing cockpit window. Its long, pointed nose blocks the pilot's view, making traditional flying impossible. To solve this, Lockheed Martin developed the Enhanced Flight Vision System. This system includes a 4K front camera with a 33-degree by 19-degree field of view, giving pilots a virtual window to see ahead. Collins Aerospace, division of United Technologies, has been selected to equip the aircraft with a modified Proline Fusion cockpit. This advanced system helps pilots navigate areas where sonic booms could cause disruption. Additionally, the aircraft will feature the EVS 360 multispectral infrared system, which combines shortwave and longwave infrared with HD cameras. This tri-band system enables pilots to see through fog, snow, smoke, and darkness, ensuring safer flights. The first test flights are scheduled between 23 and 25, and the results will be reviewed by the International Civil Aviation Organization and the FAA by 27. Meanwhile, the United States is also developing the SR-72, also known as the Son of Blackbird. Designed by Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, this next-generation hypersonic spy plane is expected to reach Mach 6, matching China's Yongxing and making it twice as fast as its legendary predecessor, the SR-71 Blackbird. Unlike the SR-71, which relied on traditional jet engines, the SR-72 will use a combined cycle propulsion system, a combination of a turbofan engine for low speeds and a scramjet engine for hypersonic speeds. This will allow it to take off normally and then accelerate to extreme speeds once in the air. The Yongxing's biggest advantage is its advanced aerodynamic design, which reportedly allows it to travel at hypersonic speeds while maintaining high maneuverability. Unlike the SR-72, which is still in development, the Yongxing has already been tested successfully and could be closer to operational use. China's rapid advancements in developing hypersonic missile technology, combined with Yongxing's progress, suggest that China might be closer to deploying a hypersonic aircraft first. If the ODE engine proves viable, it could push China's hypersonic capabilities beyond what Lockheed Martin is attempting with the SR-72 and X-59. Modern warfare has always centered around two things: intelligence and aerial superiority. While unmanned combat aerial vehicles like the Boeing MQ-28 and Ghostbat Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie have been the talk of recent aerial warfare technology, cutting-edge war helicopter designs have forced their way into the conversation, with Russia's recent $3 billion invention taking center stage. How does this invention shape the future of aerial combat? What makes this helicopter different from its predecessors? Let us unpack the significance of this aerial combat vehicle as Russia tests its $3 billion helicopter. The superpower countries of the world have always been at war over economic and territorial disputes, leading to the continuous destruction of lives and properties. While alliances and opinions change over the years, redirecting the brutality across the continents like a war version of whack-a-mole, one thing remains constant: inventions. War has always found a way to precipitate some of the greatest technologies in the world, especially combat vehicles on land and aerially. However, the tide has changed, and modern combat has gone well beyond force, with stealth coming into play, leading to the construction of cutting-edge aerial technologies like the Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie, the Dassault Neuron, and the Chinese CH-7. While these warjets have gained some popularity and wide acclaim for their effectiveness in wartime, helicopters have been neglected in the grand scheme of things. The history of helicopters is dated back to the Second World War with the creation of the Fokker-Achilles Fa-223 Drache by Nazi Germany. The Fokker-Achilles Fa-223 had a single 750-kilowatt Brahmo 323 radial engine used to power two 3-bladed, 39-foot rotors mounted on twin booms on either side of the 40-foot cylindrical fuselage. The design created a wing-shaped effect, shaping up like some mechanical bird. At a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour, the Fa-223 could cruise at 175 kilometers per hour and climb to an altitude of 7,100 meters. At the time, it seemed that they had built the world's eighth wonder, as no one else had ever seen or built any such thing as a helicopter. Of course, there were biplanes like the 1935 He-49, which was primarily designed for stealth purposes. However, the invention of the Fa-223 brought about a new type of reality and changes to aerial warfare. The Nazi German army was quite impressed with the first experimental helicopter, the Focke-Wulf FW-61. However, it was not a military helicopter. It was only an experimental creation of Focke's brainchild. However, the Nazi Germany defense did not mind his avant-garde approach. They needed an aerial combat vehicle that could carry 700 kilograms of payload without a problem, leading to the creation of the Fa-223 prototypes. A fun fact about the Fa-223 is that it used to be called the Fa-226, with no specific reason given for the redesignation of the name. Owing to its status as the first of its kind, it needed to go through flight testing. First, it was taken through a tethered flight test, and then an untethered flight test on August 3, 1940. While the Fa-223 seemed to have been credited with being the very first helicopter ever made, it was halted in production by the Allied bombing that hit Nazi Germany in June 1942, when Delmenhorst, their factory base, was incessantly bombed to the high heavens during the Second World War. Hence, the production phase was hampered, and only 20 were built. Although the Fa-223 maintained its position as the first military helicopter ever built, the Sikorsky H-5 took the spotlight. While the Fa-223 was mainly designed for military use, the Sikorsky H-5 ensured the creation of a chopper that could be used by the military and also purchased by civilians. The H-5 was originally developed by Sikorsky as an S-48. However, the United States Air Force redesignated it as an R-5. The helicopter was designed to carry out certain functions, including increased payload, endurance, speed, and service ceiling, compared to its predecessor, the Sikorsky R-4. The Sikorsky H-5 was a different beast. It differed from nearly every other chopper to have ever been made. It has a beastly rotor diameter and a longer fuselage than its predecessor, the R-4. However, as Sikorsky's market grew, making a name for itself in the military airspace, a bit of capitalism set in. Hence, they decided to modify it into a version more civilian-friendly. Setting up a capitalist venture isn't too difficult to create. especially in a class-based society where the proletariat would pay over the odds to seem completely out of everyone else's league. To lean into the capitalist market, the Sikorsky S-51 was designed with a greater rotor diameter, greater carrying capacity, and an evenly shared gross weight, providing carrying capacity for 3 passengers plus the pilot. The S-51 was designed to appeal to civilians, but also to be used on military and Air Force bases. However, it became the first helicopter to be sold to a commercial user. While the military understood the difference between the commercial usage of the flight, 11 S-51s were still ordered by the United States Air Force. Also, they were redesignated as the R-5F, and 92 of them were sent to the Navy as the HO-3S1, commonly referred to as the Horse. The Navy ordered 4 S-51s from Sikorsky in late 1946 and used them during Operation High Jump. However, the S-51s were placed into the inventory as HO-3S1. It was stealthily ferried across the seas using the seaplane tender USS Pine Island, or AV-12, as popularly called. The helicopter, first flown by Lieutenant Commander Walter M. Sessoms, became the first ever helicopter flight across the Antarctic. However, as time went on, warfare evolved, requiring an improvement in the invention of helicopters. While the S-51 had enough modifications to be both a commercial and military plane, it had more military ramifications. During Operation High Jump, it was used as a utility helicopter for rescue and mercy missions throughout the world, highlighting questions if it should have been allowed for commercial use in the first place. While the United States dominated the helicopter space with Lockheed Martin and Sikorsky, a global arms race loomed in the air like a dark cloud, and the world's superpowers followed suit, especially the United States' biggest counterpart, Russia. While early helicopter development has been through different phases of creation and versions, Igor Sikorsky remains one of the most important shapers of the modern helicopter industry. However, as his name might suggest, he was never American. He is a Russian man who fled the country during the Bolshevik Revolution, seeking new opportunities in the United States. And just like that, the Russians lost a super inventor to the United States, owing to an instability in their government. Although Russia lost Igor to the United States, they weren't fazed by the success of his invention, as they believed that they could do the same. Hence, while Igor built his choppers in the United States, Russia reacted with a chopper of their own, the Mi-1. This is Russia's first helicopter to ever make it into mass production, developed by Mikhail Mil. Before 1930, Mikhail Mil had been working on a winged aircraft that used rotation to propel its locomotion. However, a good dream is determined by planning. Mil put a lot of work and planning into the design, but he kept failing until 1946. His first designation was the EG-1, after becoming the head of the OKB-4 Design Bureau in Toshino, Russia. While he created his helicopter and failed many times, he finally figured it out. He created a final design called the GM-1, translated as Helicopter Mila, or Mil's helicopter in English. While the Sikorsky version tried to entertain more strength, dexterity, and complex rotor movement, the Soviet engineers opted for more simplicity, increasing efficiency in helicopter control, unlike the American choppers. To achieve this efficiency, they made a rotor hub with spaced vertical and horizontal hinges. The first prototype completed its first untethered flight on the 20th of September, 1948, piloted by Mikhail Babalov. While the test was a success, the Russian military demanded an official state trial, so Mikhail agreed to their demands, and they launched their trial in 1949. During testing, 2 prototypes of the helicopter were crashed. However, Mikhail did not give up. He put in a bit more work than usual, made a few tweaks, and found an answer to the reasons for the crash. The success of his work not only gave him worldwide plaudits, but the Russian military placed a demand for his chopper, albeit under a new designation called the Mi-1 for Mil initials. While the production was initially limited to a series of only 15, ordered on the 21st of February, 1950 in Factory Number 3 in Moscow, production was not increased until 1951, when Joseph Stalin witnessed the helicopter in action and deemed it important to their warfare. The 1950s saw the growth of rotor technology, hence the Mi-1s were redesigned for increased reliability, especially the number of hours it could spend in flight. First, they created the Mi-1T, with the T representing Trexo-Chasevoy, translating to 300 hours in English. Then rotor capacity improved even further over the year, with another 300-hour improvement in the Mi-1A, and then to 1,300 by the end of production. While the Mi-1s were initially built for carrying cargo and capability to play bit parts in stealth, they figured that they could do more with a different variant that could carry even heavier payloads and operational equipment, including full radio and bind flying instruments, and utilized a more reliable engine, the AI-26VF, hence the release of the Mi-1T than the Mi-1A. However, as technology improved, the Russian defense was no slouch either. The early 60s saw the introduction of enlarged cabins and engines even more powerful and reliable than the AI-26VF, which allowed the accommodation of 3 passengers on a bench behind the pilot. Russia at the time anticipated war, and they wanted every air superiority that they could possibly have over their adversaries. So they opted for the production of a rather distinct version of the Mi-1s at the time, designating it the Mi-1Mu. The Mi-1Mu was specifically designed as an anti-tank helicopter. The rationale behind it wasn't too difficult to understand. Talking about defenses against a chopper, an armored tank, and surface-to-air missiles could definitely do the job. Hence, in 1961, when Russia looked casually for a counter against tanks and surface-to-air missiles, they created the first Soviet attack helicopter. While reports suggest that they had a really good trial run, for some reason, it wasn't accepted into the production stage. The trading rumor at the time was that it had a small payload capacity, and that just wouldn't do the trick for the Soviet Army. Although the Russians had responded positively to the United States helicopter production with some of their own, they were in for another rude awakening when America released a completely different beast of a helicopter in 1962, the Bell AH-1 Cobra. The Cobra was created in response to the United States Army's request for an interim gunship during the Vietnam War, and it used the transmission and rotor system of the Bell UH-1 Iroquois, which had already proven itself to be a capable platform during the conflict, but paired it with a redesigned narrow fuselage among other features. It was the perfect combat helicopter. It was equipped with stub wings used to anchor various weapons, a chin-mounted gun turret, and an armored tandem cockpit, meaning the pilots were seated one behind the other. It was shaped in a very slender figure for agility, almost reminiscent of a Cobra. Also, the slim shape makes it difficult and, in some cases, nearly impossible to get hit by tanks or surface-to-air missiles, except there is some form of pinpoint accuracy to hit the chopper. Its first appearance came through during the Vietnam War, in June 1967 to be precise. It provided fire support to friendly ground forces. In some sort of ways, it was like calling in the cavalry. Its effectiveness was almost dreamy, as no one really knew how capable it could be. Often it was paired with the Hughes OH-6 Cayuse, a single-engine light helicopter designed and produced by the American aerospace company Hughes Helicopters. While the Cayuse performed its stealth and scout mission, gathering intelligence, the Cobra followed closely like a guard dog, shooting to eliminate any form of threat in its way. The tag team operation was referred to as the Hunter-Killer mission. The Cayuse played the hunter, and the Cobra played the killer. The Cobra became the talk of aerial warfare all over the world, with an unprecedented effect on aerial combat. While one might think of the United States hoping to hoard such military might, surprisingly, they were ready to sell. And nations such as Israel, Turkey, and Japan reached out to buy, increasing their military might with the United States' cutting-edge technology. While warjets keep getting accolades for their service in war, as in good reasons, the Cobra AH-1 also became a fundamental part of some of the greatest wars ever fought in the name of the United States. Aside from the Vietnam War, the Cobra dealt devastating blows in Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, and the Gulf War. However, as time went on, scientific evolution caught up with the Cobra, leading to the creation of its replacement, the Boeing AH-64 Apache, during the 1990s. Although the Cobra might have been a United States creation, it was also used prolifically by the Israeli Air Force, who used it for combat during the Lebanon War of 1972, giving them an edge in the war. Upgraded versions of the Cobra have been developed, such as the twin-engined AH-1C Cobra, otherwise called the Super Cobra, and the experimental Bell 309 King Cobra. Although the Cobra seemed like the peak of modern combat helicopters at its inception, it eventually became surplus to requirements and has been reused for other purposes, including civilian ones. Numerous examples have been converted to perform aerial firefighting operations. A perfect example is the United States Firewatch Services, which acquired Cobras that have been used in combats during the Vietnam Wars and retrofitted them into a red-white perfection with infrared sensors, so they can be used to gather close-in intelligence from ground troops fighting fire. While the world watched the slim Cobra showing off at war and eventually retiring as a firefighter outfit, other world superpowers look to create a better version of this combat monster. While some have tried and failed at the production level, Russia has come up with a $3 billion helicopter project that has left the military combat landscape in awe. The Russian military had always had a trusted template for their helicopters, Mikhail Mills. After his discovery in the 40s through the cities, the Russian military fell right in league with world superpower countries that possessed a combat helicopter. However, while that time may have well passed, the Mi-17, introduced in 1975 as the Mi-M8, resumed production in 2024 at factories in the Kuzan and Ulan-Ude. While some might have an idea of this chopper's capabilities, it has been stepped up to a whole new level, and no one saw it coming. Of course, it isn't news that Russia remains at war with Ukraine. It would seem another time of war has created another cutting-edge technology in aerial warfare, a recurring theme in the history of warfare. The original version of this chopper was built from the basic Mi-8 frame, fitted with larger Klimov TV3 engines, rotors, and transmission, along with fuselage improvements for extra heavy load capacity. While most choppers struggle with hot and high conditions, where there is a low air density due to high ambient temperature and high airport elevation, and air density decreases with increasing temperature and altitude, Russia's new $3 billion Mi-17 is equipped with optimal engines like the 1,545 kilowatt Isotov TV3117VM to battle these conditions easily. Although Russia has a reputation for keeping its military intelligence a secret and unleashing it unexpectedly in combats, it has decided to export the Mi-17s, flexing its newfound military might and them sending a message of caution and protection. The helicopter has a specific design that has kept it completely different from every other kind. Its recognizable trademark is the tail rotor added to the port side instead of the conventional starboard side and dust shields in front of the engine intakes. The production sent a shockwave down the spines of competitors around the world, not only sparking a global arms race, but buyers queuing at Russia's door, banging on for a chance to buy this super air beast. In March 2001, Russia eventually gave China a license for production, albeit led by Mil Moscow Helicopter Plant, JSC, and the Sichuan Lantian Helicopter Company, Limited in Chengdu, Sichuan Province, as a joint venture. Fast forward to the 21st century, and countries like Argentina, Bangladesh, and Peru have come as clients looking to buy this helicopter in an arms deal worth millions of dollars to Russia. While the military and economic tussle between Russia and the United States remains a reference point, it has never stopped them from doing business even in arms, where both countries appear to be the leading light. Their first buy from the Russian military came in 2009, and they handed over 4 of the cargo helicopters to the Pakistan Army to facilitate its counter-terrorism operations, while they played big brother in their diplomatic relations with Pakistan. However, not only has the United States used this Russian state-of-the-art helicopter for diplomatic reasons, they have also reportedly considered adding it to their special forces ranks, using it to obscure troops' movements. Fast forward to 2022, the Joe Biden administration announced that the United States would be supplying Ukraine with 11 Mi-17s to aid them in their defense against Russia. Imagine a capitulation of Russia under its own $3 billion cutting-edge technology.
Next to the war in Ukraine, it says Russia has launched its largest single drone and missile attack.
Explosions ripped down the tracks as Ukrainian drones hit a Russian military train in a sudden calculated strike. Fire engulfed critical cargo, but the real surprise came after the blast, when Russia's response turned the incident into something far more dangerous. What unfolded next changed everything. How did Ukraine manage to pull off a high-precision strike using civilian infrastructure deep inside Russian territory? And with drones breaching strategic corridors, is Russia's traditional air defense model still viable in this new era of warfare? Join us as we uncover the explosive aftermath of this unexpected strike. On June 1st, 2025, at approximately 6:12 in the morning Moscow time, a truck was parked near the entrance of Olorsk, a small town within the Murman region of Russia. The narrow road leading into town was closely flanked by dense forest, guiding toward a heavily secured area known for housing one of Russia's most critical military installations, Minyan Air Base. This location is home to the Tu-95 strategic bombers, a key component of Russia's nuclear triad. The truck driver, under the impression that the cargo was a prefabricated house, was told the day prior to wait at that location for a client scheduled to arrive in the morning. Unknown to him, the contents of the trailer were far more consequential. At precisely 12 minutes after 6, the roof of the trailer tore open, initiating what appeared to be a military-grade operation. A series of drones launched into the air, one after another, marking the beginning of what has since been identified as Ukraine's Operation Web, a strategic maneuver that challenges traditional definitions of warfare. Russia's nuclear triad consists of 3 delivery systems: land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, including the RS-20 Yars, RS-24, and RS-28 Sarmat, nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines such as the Borei-class Project 955 and the Delta IV-class Project 667 BDRM, and strategic aviation bombers including the Tu-95MS, Tu-160, and Tu-22M3. This triad holds significant symbolic and strategic value for Russia, often portrayed as the backbone of its national security and global influence. The Russian Federation's nuclear policy explicitly states that an attack on any element of its triad grants the country the right to execute a nuclear response. This framework has long been perceived as an untouchable safeguard. However, the events of June first demonstrated a change in strategic reality, with Ukraine delivering a direct and coordinated attack. The drones launched from the trailer flew low over the treetops of the northern dwarf pine forests, targeting the Onaya airfield with an estimated speed of 50 meters per second, or roughly 112 miles per hour. According to assessments made by the Russian General Staff, the likelihood of such an attack succeeding was minimal. Nevertheless, the drones were equipped with live video feeds transmitted via Russia's own mobile network, allowing operators located hundreds of miles away in Ukraine to control the devices with precision and visual clarity. They observed every structural element of the base in real time, from fence posts to antennae to hangars. Minyan Air Base is protected by a multi-layered air defense system. The first line of defense includes specialized radar installations, notably the Nebo-M system, which utilizes long wavelengths capable of detecting small airborne objects such as drones. However, the radar system suffers from a critical limitation. Its wide beam span reduces its positional accuracy. While it can detect a drone's presence, it struggles to direct missiles precisely enough to ensure interception, particularly against low-flying targets. Despite the presence of advanced radar, the drones from Operation Web proceeded undetected. The Nebo-M system failed to recognize the low-flying, small-profile drones as they maneuvered through terrain clutter. But beyond this, Ukraine's tactical advantage became even clearer when the drones encountered Russia's second-tier defenses, the S-400 Triumph system. This air defense platform is widely regarded as Russia's most capable, boasting a maximum range of 250 kilometers, or about 155 miles. Its 92 N6E battle radar, referred to as Gravestone by NATO, is capable of simultaneously tracking up to 300 aerial targets. Complementing this is the 91 N6E long-range surveillance radar, known as Big Bird, which can scan airspace up to 400 kilometers, roughly 250 miles. Its interceptor missiles, particularly the 48N6E3 model, can reach altitudes of 30 kilometers, which is over 15 miles. However, what followed resembled a high-tech David versus Goliath confrontation. The Triumph system is engineered for high-altitude, fast-moving objects, fighters, cruise missiles, hypersonic vehicles, not for nimble, ground-skimming drones with minimal radar signatures. A first-person view drone, the type employed by Ukraine, has a radar cross-section of less than 0.1 square meters, roughly 1 square foot, and typically flies at around 90 meters, which is approximately 300 feet. At this altitude, ground-based radar is limited by the curvature of the Earth, restricting its effective coverage to roughly 40 to 50 kilometers or 25 to 30 miles. Even within that distance, low-altitude flight combined with ground clutter, signal interference from buildings, trees, and terrain drastically reduces detection reliability. In practice, the drones only entered the radar's optimal detection zone when they were already within 5 to 6 kilometers, about 3 miles of the airbase. At first glance, this still appears to favor Russia's defenses. The S-400 missiles have minimum engagement ranges of 2 to 5 kilometers, 1 to 3 miles for heavier models, and about 1 kilometer, just over half a mile for lighter variants. But this is where cost and doctrine come into play. Missiles in this system cost close to $1 million apiece, while Ukraine's drones are valued at approximately $500. Despite the high value of the aircraft stationed at Minyan Air Base, no missile launch order was given. The reasoning is speculative, but several possibilities arise. There may have been no existing protocol for responding to such small, low-value threats in such proximity. Military bureaucracies, whether in Moscow or Washington, often move slowly, especially when facing novel scenarios. Additionally, even after 2 years of drone warfare in Ukraine, many in senior command still operate within outdated conceptual frameworks centered on conventional warfare. Finally, it's possible the S-400 simply could not respond in time. Its minimum range limitations, combined with the drone's launch point and flight path, may have placed them outside the system's effective engagement envelope. Ukraine, it seems, understood this gap and chose to exploit it precisely. At 6 minutes past 6 in the morning, Ukrainian drone operators had a clear visual of the distinct octagonal radar array belonging to the Gravestone system. While the S-400 Triumph was designed to track high-altitude aerial threats, targets flying close to the ground were intended to be intercepted by Russia's short-range defense, the Pantsir S-1 system. In theory, the Pantsir's radar can detect objects with a radar cross-section of 2 square meters, roughly 20 square feet, at a distance of up to 36 kilometers, or approximately 22 miles. However, at an altitude of just 90 meters, equivalent to around 300 feet, the detection range drops significantly to between 10 and 15 kilometers, or roughly 6 to 9 miles, and often less in the uneven terrain of the tundra. As the drones passed the 6-kilometer mark from the base perimeter, the Pantsir systems finally recognized them as active targets. This provided Russian air defenses with less than 2 minutes to respond. In ideal conditions, that may have been enough. However, Operation Web provided no such conditions. The drones flew in tightly packed swarms and shifted formations periodically. Each change forced the Pantsir's fire control system to recalculate priorities, intercept angles, and missile trajectories. These frequent updates overwhelmed the processing capabilities of the onboard computers, causing delays and erratic performance. The software entered feedback loops, struggling to determine which drone to engage, which trajectory to follow, and when to coordinate launches. A limited number of missiles were launched, but even the highly agile 57E6 surface-to-air models lacked the necessary time to stabilize their flight paths at such close range. The proximity fuses failed to activate consistently due to the compressed engagement window, making direct hits unreliable. With missiles proving ineffective, the defense resorted to its final option, autocannons. The Panzer systems opened fire using twin 30mm guns, producing a dense barrage across the sky. While this succeeded in disabling a handful of drones, most continued their advance. By 14 minutes past 6 in the morning, the first wave of drones breached the perimeter of Minyan Air Base. What followed was a targeted assault. Several drones hit radar antenna arrays, cutting power and disrupting communications. Others struck fuel depots and hangars. The majority aimed directly for the exposed Tu-95 bombers stationed on the tarmac, valuable assets at the heart of Russia's strategic air capability. This breach marked a successful phase of Operation Web. However, it was only the beginning. The mission was not structured around a fixed number of stages. Instead, it was designed to escalate, apply sustained pressure, and continuously challenge conventional defensive assumptions. At 6:25 in the morning, another web commenced with similar precision to the earlier strike near Olorsk. In the Ryazan region of central Russia, several kilometers outside Delivo Air Base, a semi-truck was quietly parked along a suburban road. The driver had been issued routine instructions: pull over, wait for the client, and expect cargo transfer in the morning. Like the driver in the northern strike, he was unaware that his trailer contained a mobile drone launch system. At exactly 6:25, the tarp split open and another wave of Ukrainian first-person view drones surged into the sky. Their altitude remained consistent at 90 meters, and the launch point was just 5 to 6 kilometers from the airbase, well within the tactical engagement zone. As with the earlier wave, the drones were controlled remotely by operators located hundreds of kilometers away in Ukraine, using Russia's own civilian mobile network as the backbone for command and control. Each drone connected to a secure channel through standard fourth-generation wireless modules, turning Russian cell towers into part of the architecture supporting the strike. On their monitors, Ukrainian operators saw every structural detail surrounding Delivo Air Base: the perimeter fence, hangars, concrete pads, power lines, allowing them to guide each drone precisely to its assigned target in real time. Defending the facility were multiple battalions of the S-400 Triumph system with overlapping coverage zones. Short-range Pantsir S-1 systems guarded the inner perimeter. Electronic warfare systems, including the Krasuka-4 and the Koipo complex, were actively jamming across the entire radio frequency spectrum. Based on surface-level defense mapping, Delivo appeared highly secure. However, Ukrainian forces deployed a new maneuver. Rather than advancing in a dense cluster, the formation split into 7 mini-groups, each consisting of 4 to 5 drones. These micro-swarms approached from varied directions, altitudes, and with staggered timing intervals. Despite the apparent randomness, this was a mathematically calculated overload scenario aimed at exploiting logical weaknesses in Russia's integrated air defense framework. The breakdown began almost immediately. Each Panzer system could independently track 4 aerial targets at once. Each S-400 battalion could handle 12. In theory, the numbers were adequate, but the repeated splitting and reforming of drone groups forced the fire control systems to recalculate intercept priorities, angles, and predictive flight paths continuously. These synchronized pattern changes overloaded software logic, creating latency. As the defenses locked onto one group, another penetrated faster than anticipated. Each new split introduced an average 12-second delay in recalculation, time enough for a drone to travel nearly 600 meters at its operating speed. The systems fell into what's referred to as internal loop mode, where defensive algorithms lag behind real-time maneuvering. Russian jammers operated at full power, deploying blanket interference across multiple frequency bands. However, the drones were equipped with adaptive frequency hopping networks capable of up to 1,000 switches per second. The jammers were simply too slow to suppress the signal traffic. As a result, Ukrainian operators retained control throughout the approach. The tactical design of this strike demonstrated a sophisticated evolution in drone warfare, combining real-time remote piloting, cellular network exploitation, algorithmic disruption, and electronic countermeasures in a compact package that outmaneuvered one of Russia's most hardened air bases. At 31 minutes past 6 in the morning on June 1st, 2025, a synchronized drone strike commenced near Delivo Air Base. 17 drones hit their targets with intervals of just 1 to 2 seconds, each carrying either shape charge or fragmentation payloads. The aircraft stationed on the tarmac ignited instantly. By 34 minutes past 6, the base was engulfed in flames. Of the 31 drones launched, 8 were intercepted, but the remaining drones fulfilled their mission. Several bombers were damaged or destroyed in what became the second major air defense breach against Russian strategic infrastructure that morning. At 42 minutes past 6, the third stage of Operation Web targeted Ivanovo-Severny Air Base in central Russia, infrastructure that morning. At 42 minutes past 6, the third stage of Operation Web targeted Ivanovo-Severny Air Base in central Russia. The tactical significance of this site lay in its role as a hub for Russia's long-range aviation and, more importantly, its hosting of the A-50 airborne early warning and control aircraft. These planes act as airborne command centers, coordinating radar coverage and missile defense across vast stretches of Russian airspace. Neutralizing even a single A-50 aircraft would result in a major disruption to Russia's defensive command network. Execution mirrored earlier phases. A day before, a semi-truck had been parked near the perimeter of the base under routine instructions: pull over, wait, and expect the client in the morning. At 42 minutes past 6 on the day of the strike, drones launched from the vehicle. Altitude was maintained at 90 meters. Launch distance was 5 kilometers. The drones, guided remotely, moved with deliberate coordination. Their targets, marked by the distinct radar domes on top of the A-50 fuselages, were highly visible. By 47 minutes past 6, the first drone hit the radar dome of one A-50. Seconds later, a second drone disabled another aircraft. The loss of these platforms severely impacted the long-range air coordination capabilities for the eastern sector of Russian airspace. By 6:50, Ivanovo-Severny was under a heavy blanket of smoke. Despite the magnitude of this attack, Operation Web was only midway through its full strategic scope. At 10 minutes past 7 Moscow time, the operation reached eastern Siberia, aiming at Belia Air Base in the Krasnoyarsk Krai region. This base served as a launch point for Tu-95 bombers that frequently conducted polar missions and strategic patrols across the Arctic. The setup repeated familiar patterns. A semi-truck was positioned 5 to 6 kilometers from the base on a quiet roadside, with its driver given generic instructions: wait until morning for delivery. However, unlike previous phases, an unanticipated complication arose. Local long-haul truck drivers who happened to be nearby witnessed drones launching from the trailer. Although unaware of the operation's specifics, their instinctual response was immediate. Sensing an imminent threat to Russian territory, they attempted to intervene. Dirt and rocks were thrown into the open trailer, and at least one individual fired a hunting rifle at the truck's roof. Though these spontaneous actions were uncoordinated and lacked clear knowledge of the attack, they helped disrupt the launch. Only a handful of drones reached the fuel service pad, and no direct hits were recorded on aircraft stationed at the base. Behind this surreal scene, a high-tech strike undermined by local civilians, lay months of logistical planning executed far from the combat zones. Thousands of kilometers away in the Euro-industrial region of Chelyabinsk, the operation had been assembled inside an unmarked warehouse on the city's outskirts. The facility had been used to build, arm, and prep the drones. Massive hangars housed the devices, where automated systems were installed into trailer units. Batteries were loaded, warheads mounted, and control links tested. Officially, the cargo was listed as prefabricated homes or construction modules. That's what the paperwork showed, and it's what truck drivers believed they were transporting. Each driver received a route, a set of GPS coordinates for roadside stops, and a timetable. The rest was entirely automated. Once in position during the early hours of June 1st, the trucks opened one by one, from Olorsk in the northwest to Belaya in Siberia. One after another, drones filled the air, launching silently into Russian skies. Small, fast, and camera-guided, they became a visual symbol of a new kind of warfare: lightweight, low-cost, and decentralized. Assessing the results brings the scale of Operation Web into focus. According to Pentagon estimates, roughly 20 aircraft were hit, with 10 believed to be totally destroyed. Ukrainian sources claim that 41 aircraft were struck, with at least 13 confirmed losses. Independent analysis by The Washington Post, using satellite imagery and video evidence, validated no fewer than 13 damaged aircraft. While figures varied depending on source and methodology, the core fact remained clear. The operation inflicted severe disruption and strategic damage. Across 4 Russian air bases, the pattern repeated: precision launches, coordinated drone maneuvers, systemic defense breakdowns, and aircraft losses. Hundreds of drones, each weighing just a few kilograms, bypassed high-end radar arrays and missile systems using brushless motors and commercially available electronics. These weren't hypersonic missiles, stealth bombers, or satellite-linked arsenals. They were small-scale devices, often built from components found in retail hobby stores. June 1st, 2025 marked a critical shift. The old assumptions about warfare, dominated by expensive platforms, hardened defenses, and hierarchical command structures, began to erode. Operation Web showcased that modern conflict can be decentralized, algorithmic, and driven by software and mobile connectivity as much as by firepower. The implications extend far beyond this one day, pointing to a broader evolution in how nations will protect assets, respond to threats, and structure their defense strategies. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there!